All right. Good morning, or good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are. This is the Q&A for the bridge building, the getting started masterclass that we did last week. We have one question that was submitted in advance from Mary. There are a lot of questions from Mary, so we'll start there. It'll be our warm up practice swings. And our general approach here is that I just read the questions because it's really my opportunity. If I read the question, it's my opportunity to decide if I don't want to be the one to answer it first because I need more time to think. So I read it and then I decide if I want Andre to answer it first, so I can take some time. So that's just being transparent here. Yeah, occasionally I feel like I'll jump in too. So Mary's first question is, I don't know how to calculate lifetime value or client acquisition. This feels embarrassing, but in my current reality, it's something I want to change. Can you recommend a resource about this? First of all, don't be embarrassed about that. I would guess 95 out of 100 people who do this professionally probably can't do those calculations accurately anyway. And there is no definitive way, frankly. I mean, customer acquisition cost, there sort of is. Average order value, there sort of is, but even that has some gray area. Lifetime value, certainly there's no predetermined lifetime. I mean, when I ran an agency, I had a client for 21 years, a single client for 21 years, my first client, and who was also my last client. I had another for 20 years and many for 15 plus. So what was the lifetime value? Well, you don't know going into it. Other companies like the large financial publishers, Motley Fool, Agora, places like that, their business models generally are set up on a 30-day AOV. So the whole business is set up on, there's a cost to acquire the customer, 30 days to establish average order value, and then 6 months to establish lifetime customer value. Now, that's a very different business, and taking that approach creates very different outcomes than saying 2 years, for example. We talk about Dean Jackson's research a lot, which, when you sort of know how the world works in digital marketing, you realize Dean's like he and I are friends. Dean Jackson's data is very accurate, which is of when you have a large sampling of buyers, that only about 15 to 20% of the people who are eventually going to buy in the first 90 days. The remainder buy up to 2 years. So I like the 2-year window. That feels kind of right. But it's not set in stone. So you don't feel bad about this. I think the larger answer here is, can you recommend a resource about this? I'm going to create that resource and put it in. We'll put it in the system somewhere. I'll do it the next week or two, just because this is important. And I use this language all the time, and I realize just because it's just part of, when you work with clients, you have to be able to do that kind of calculation in your head, and you have to know how they're calculating it to understand how the numbers are going to move and the things that you have to do to make those numbers move. So I can do this in my sleep. Some of the few math things I can actually do easily. So I'll do some sort of quick overview of that and we'll drop it into the system in the next couple of weeks. Andre, anything to add to that? I know numbers are your favorite thing.
Yeah, I can't add. So no, I don't have much to add.
It's easy. Maybe your strategy is better than mine. Let me answer stuff.
Done.
All right. I'll just hand this next one off to you instead. All right, next question. Well, looks like there's another question before that. Okay, so that question was, Mary had positioned it in the A to B tension. That was the A. Now that she's in the B section. So this is the background. She says, I've grown fearful of goals. I'm apprehensive of the idea of setting ambitious targets because I felt really bad when I haven't achieved them, or haven't even done things I'm not proud, or have even done things I'm not proud of in order to get the set outcome. For instance, sending a dreaded last chance email, Andre's favorite, to get a certain number of sales. So I've defaulted to setting very modest and safe targets that I can for sure achieve, but then I'm not fulfilled and my business doesn't move as rapidly as it could or should. How can I overcome this fear of failure and get remotivated to play big? I can't wait to hear the answer to this, because we all suffer from this. So Andre, take it away. How do we solve this problem?
Right. So Mary's trying to define B. So I think for us, it comes down to what are the things that we can control, that we have full control over. So instead of just it's probably okay to have financial goals, but in the context of our A to B, the structural tension between that and then moving between the two, and then once you get to B and you've done the work to convert, well, change B into your current reality, that works better for us, I think, is when you're doing something that you can fully control. So it'll be, once you've defined what your priorities are, or you've prioritized some things that you need to do in order to attain whatever B is, write a sequence would be something that you can control. That could be part of the B. Again, it depends on how long it would take you to write said sequence. You wouldn't want, B should really be a few weeks, maybe as far out as 3 months, I think is what Sean and I mentioned on the call. Certainly not longer than that, in this definition anyway. So, how long will it take you to write said sequence or build out some assets on your website that's going to help, do some other component of the business, create better prospects. So maybe that becomes the priority. Well, how long is it going to take to do that research, to write those, create that thing. And I think that's how you define B. And then once you put that into the world, you've done your part, and then it's you've done the piece that you have control over. Then traffic comes in, whether you paying for that or if it's organic. But again, if it's organic, there's elements that are outside of your control. So if you want control over that, you need to do activities that are going to increase that, whether it's organic, being on other people's podcasts and do JV deals. That's those activities that you have control over. Although what happens as a result of that, you don't have control over, so you can't factor that into your B. So I think that's the short answer. I don't know if Sean would go a different direction, but I think
it's interesting. I feel really attached to this question because I could have written this paragraph myself and it would be true for me because I've been in that same place, right? And it's that tension between I want to dream big, there are things that I really want to be true, and then but it's easy to get demotivated when it doesn't happen, or if you don't, then it becomes this it's a really bad cycle, right? It's a vicious cycle where you set really big goals, you don't get there, so then you continue to decrease the size of your goals, so that eventually they're just really easy. But then nobody wakes up every day going, "Hey, I can't wait to achieve this really easy goal." It's not motivating. So it becomes this. It's exactly how Mary has described it. That it's really this. It's a different kind of tension, and it's a negative tension in a sense between. I want something amazing to be true, but I don't want to have yet another disappointment. To Andre's point, and I think this is probably, the way he described it is probably the best solution, which is, at least in my experience, when I define things that the thing that I'm defining that's outside my actual control, and then if I don't get there, well, if it wasn't in my control anyway, how did I expect to get there? So there is a bit of a skill involved in saying, I'll give an example for us. There was a lot of work that went into the enrollment in the PLS for the system earlier this year, and the actual outcome, the number of people who purchased the system, upgraded to the system, none of that was really within our control. The things that were within our control were the thinking behind the PLS, showing up every day to do the work, occasionally starting an email over because it didn't quite get there. I mean, all of that was within our control. So by focusing on that, that can be very fulfilling. The challenge, I think, is to make sure that the thing that you're doing is in service to what you're trying to accomplish. Because when that gets fuzzy, and really, from my perspective, the central message of this Getting Started Masterclass was fuzzy stuff doesn't work. It just doesn't. And it's because you just if I said to you like, hey, let's go on a trip, and you said where, and I was like, I don't know, over there. That's not how we were like, what, like, do you have a head injury? What are you talking about over there? Like, what's the address? Like, we need to know the address where we're going, because that's the tension that pulls us there, right? That's the um, I picked up my wife at the airport in Boston yesterday. If I had set the GPS for Boston, right, I could have ended up all manner of places, right? I needed to know I was going to the airport. I may not have needed to put the GPS the specific terminal and everything else. Because once I got there, I could, I kind of figure that out. But I needed to have enough detail, and maybe that's the message here. And really, I'm talking to myself as much as I'm answering this question for you, Mary, which is having enough detail to know, first of all, that that's where you want to go. That if you get there, it's exciting. It's a stretch. So it's not so ridiculous. You subconsciously know you're going to get there and you check out immediately. But it's not so easy that you could just meander and find yourself there. But it's some, I don't know, plus 10, plus 20%, whatever lights you up, like what feels like hard but doable. That's probably the sweet spot for establishing B. Certainly in my experience, when I look at it, I think, okay, and this is I know is maddening for Andre sometimes, that I look at it and ask myself, what, all things considered, what could we accomplish in the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, quarter? I'm like, all right, what if I added 20 to 50 to 300% to that? Like, what would that look like? And that plus 20 pulls. I can feel it. I'm like, wow, if we do that, that's going to feel good. So I don't know. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I've got a little
right.
addendum that I just want to add to that, because it's easy to think of some of these things. Let me reword that. It's sometimes more motivating to do activities that directly contribute to revenue, and contribute to revenue. You write a PLS, you send it out, and revenue starts to come in, and those are always fun. And the activities like those B activities that don't contribute directly to revenue, but they contribute to the potential for revenue. At some point down the line, those are harder. They're harder, and they're somewhat less motivating because it's not tied to revenue, which is easy to get dopamine squirts from. So when in the beginning of 2021, when Sean and I had a goal of completing Art of Email, well, B wasn't complete Art of Email, because that was just insane. I mean, I'd been trying to complete that course for years, so it was silly to say, well, B is complete that course. So we broke it down into pieces, and us going from A to B, A to B, A to B, and that resolving tension was us creating these smaller milestones that moved us, that inched us forward far enough into the future where it felt like there's tension there. And then we had to go and do the work and did it, but it wasn't tied to revenue. But the thing that pulled us along is, once it's done, it's done. This thing has the potential to make money for years into the future, and that's another way to think of certain things that they just have to be done, but that there is not a revenue component.
I'm laughing when you're writing or when you're saying this, because I had to mute myself, because I didn't realize that's what you were doing, because at the beginning of last year I was like, A is where we are, B is the Art of Email is finished. that was my A to B. Now, and of course it was comical, because I think at one point we had a conversation. We're like, all right, 2 to 3 months, we'll have this thing wrapped up, and 9 months later we released it 9.5 months later. So there's we say this a lot. There's no right way, right? There's no right way. Nothing we're saying. Don't ever take anything that we're saying as, it's not gospel, capital G, right? This is, we think very deeply about these things, and we come from very different perspectives, and we have a long experience of seeing certain principles hold true. And at the principle level, capital T truth, I think we would say we support this. But at at the tactical implementation, we have to find our way as individuals. I mean, things that light some people up. There are people who are just unbelievably motivated by revenue, by money, that it's not necessarily because they want to spend it or buy things, but money is a neutral indicator of value. And some people like to have that as a clear, objective scorecard. Other people are highly demotivated by the thought of, oh, I'm not in the business to make money. I want to change lives, or I want to, whatever it is. But you've got to find that your B has to be the place that's pulling you forward has to be the thing that lights you up, or it just doesn't work, right? And when I say it doesn't work, I mean, the tension's not created. If you say to yourself, here I am, and I want to go to that place over there, and that place over there is not appealing, you will not be drawn to it. It will not pull you toward it. But if you take the time and ask yourself, if you say, okay, in 6 weeks, I want to have a relationship building series created. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you're working on a front end for a business, you have an established offer, and you want a relationship building series that leads to a hard bridge. Actually, let's make it easier. It's a relationship building series that has a soft bridge that transitions to a story powered promotion, and you need the multi-page pre-sell in front of that. Yeah, let's say you're getting plenty of traffic. That's all taken care of, but you need that thing. Well, you can create a destination postcard of having a complete multi-page pre-sell, 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages, that transitions to a relationship building series that has the soft bridge transition to a story powered promotion. You can imagine what that looks like. Not necessarily details, but you can imagine that being complete and the effect it would have on your business. Like, what will happen when you have that? And at that point, ask yourself, does that light me up? If that were true, if I had those things, they were in place, and now I had a way that the traffic that I'm getting, I'm sending it through this thing that I've created, and I'm getting results, and I have that next step. If I can do that in 6 weeks, is that exciting? And if the answer is meh, no, okay, well, do the same exercise, but until something makes you pause and you think, hell yeah, if I had that, then that's the thing to do. Like, it's the thing that you just go, yes, like that, like you feel it in your gut. Like, I want that to be true, because that will pull you forward. And if you get that right and you're Andre, you'll make it 6 weeks and you'll make it happen. If you get that right and you're me, you'll say 5 weeks, because that shaving that week off, for whatever reason, for me, drives the action a little more for me. Like, that excites me. Where that could be, and I mentioned that not to contrast Andre and I, but to make it an additional nuance for you to consider in your toolbox. Because some people, that's a really good example of 2 subtleties that you may not pick up until you experience it yourself. Some people who set a time frame and work to be done in the time frame that feels reasonable are motivated by that. Like, I can do this in this amount of time. That feels good. Let's get after it. Other people, like me, who it may be a weird dysfunction, like to say, well, 6 weeks, I could do that in 6 weeks. But if I knock a week off, not because I want to get it finished a week earlier, but because I want the experience that it drives when I'm right up against it, because I'm at my best when I'm right up against it. So there are all kinds of ways to do this. All right, we went way down the rabbit hole on this one. What a great question, Barry. Wow. Okay, next question. And now this third part. So Mary has defined A, then B, and now the next heading is how to get there. So Mary writes, I need to work on all 3 parts of my business, and I don't know where to start. I wouldn't start with traffic, because I understand it's best to have the front end and back end dialed in before paying for traffic. Not necessarily. But it's best to focus on, is it best to focus on email first, like building a relationship building series in a first product launch series, so that people who are already entering my world have the best experience, and I get everybody ready for the new people who will come later? Or should I start with world building first, so that I attract better prospects up front, even if the email part isn't fully optimized yet? You want to tackle this one first, Andre? Me too. It's up to you. I'll let you make some of the choices. It's not fair that I get to be the traffic cop all the time. It's awesome. It's just not fair.
Well, I mean, I think, there's certainly no right way to do this, and this comes down to prioritizing where you feel there's the most leverage. but then there's also nuance. You know, you need to factor in other things that's harder to measure. Maybe like, you know, what do you enjoy doing? What is difficult? You know, I don't have any, like me personally, not Sean, I don't have any recent experience, you know, with paid traffic. So for me, that seems difficult. Like that feels like a hard thing. But creating a multi-page pre-sale, I love that. So over the years, over the last 15 years, my default, my bias has always been to start with my sphere of influence inspired front end piece, because I have so much fun writing those and, you know, thinking up the story. What am I going to say to pull people forward? What am I going to say to repel certain people? And for me, that was always the highest reward in terms of the energy it gave me, the fun I had in creating it, and the byproduct of that is I create a front end that does the job that I needed to do, which is, you know, create better prospects. So as soon as people opt in at the end of that thing, they're better than if I hadn't have created that. And for me, that gives me the energy to then, okay, now I'm going to write the email sequence. So that was normally my process. I started with the sphere of influence inspired front end. I would then write the email, because I can write the email component pretty quickly. So that didn't take as long. The sphere of influence inspired front end would probably take the longest, but I have the most fun with that. And then email came second. And now I've got all the pieces in place to mess about with the traffic engines at that point. So that was my flow almost always. Once I built a big audience up and I had an email list of people that, you know, are essentially had their attention whenever I sent out an email. Well, in those moments, I would still create those sphere of influence inspired front ends for any campaign that I used to run. So if I was promoting something as an affiliate, part of my so B in that case would create a little multi-page pre-sale that tells a story that then I can use my bridge email to get people to raise their hand, and then when they raise their hand, it'll redirect to my multi-page pre-sale that exposes them to the story I wanted them to see, at which point they segment it out. And that was my process, and that was really fun. And I did that over and over and over again. But for somebody else, you know, creating that front end is maybe the most difficult, challenging thing. So it's like, well, probably don't start there then. Start somewhere else. So I think that will be my answer.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm glad I let you answer this first, because it took me a while to actually figure out my answer. This is such a great strategy on my part. I just love this. What occurred to me is I have a skill set that to me seems it's natural as breathing, but it is a separate skill set. And it's because what I had to do working with clients is within a day or two, I had to be able to answer this question for them. Yeah, sometimes it was a week or more, but I had to be able to sit down with a client and ask a bunch of questions, and then from those questions, create a strategy that would move their business forward. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's the only thing that mattered. It wasn't my winning personality or charm. It was, did I get them results? Yes or no? So there is a skill here, and I want to figure out a way to teach this in the system now, because I'm really excited about as I think about it. And that skill is, how do you become so adept at the story of your business that this question essentially answers itself all the time? So let me unpack that a little bit and hope that it makes a little more sense. I've said a million times, I probably said this in the masterclass too, that if you have to be able to truly understand your business, you have to be able to draw it on a single sheet of paper with a crayon. Like where does my traffic come from? What happens when I get that traffic? And what happens as a result, all the way to whatever the system is, you know, my business system, what does it work? What is it doing? And when you become, but it's not a spreadsheet. This is where I think people go awry. They put a bunch of numbers in a spreadsheet and they're like, I still don't know what to do. And it's because the spreadsheet doesn't tell a story. I'll use an example that just popped into my head from this is quite a while ago. I worked for a large culinary school doing lead gen, and they were in a market of like an ultra competitive market for lead gen because they were lead aggregators. So lead aggregator are people who buy. They use Google search, and they're buying people who are looking for culinary schools in general, and then they can pay a ton because they resell those leads to culinary schools. And when you're competing against them, the economics are very different because one lead for them can be sold 10, 15, 20, 30 times. Whereas for an individual culinary school, that lead needs to convert for them. So the economics are wildly different. So I was working with them in that capacity, and for them it was always, we just need more leads, we need more leads. But at some point I sat down and I said, okay, let's look at the story that's being told here. And the story that was being told in their data was that the program that they were most interested in building was their online program. And their online program was getting, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 or 450 visits, unique visitors per week. But they were there, the number of applicants was ridiculously low. And we were in this strategy meeting, and I opened up the page and I looked at it, and the problem, it was all conversion problem. Like it was just, it didn't make, once you found that page and you found the info about the online program, it was almost impossible to submit an application. Like no one had ever actually sat down and tried to go through the whole process. And I was trying to do it in this meeting, the strategy meeting, to figure out what's the problem here. And what was clearly a problem, the story that was being told was they're getting a lot of traffic, but the system doesn't convert that traffic in any capacity to customers. So it's a massive barrier. And their solution was more traffic. And what my point was that when you have a conversion problem, more traffic is never the answer. Right? But you have to understand that. My point isn't the specific. The point is the ability to look at your business and know the story that it's telling. And so and this is not easy, but it is, there's some of the dimensions that we talked about in the masterclass around, you need to understand your audience. And when we say your audience, we mean that means, your audience, if you have an email list, that's part of your audience. The audience you have of organic traffic, that's part of your audience. Maybe you do, you're getting some referral traffic because you're on podcasts occasionally. That's part of your audience. Any traffic that comes to any page on the internet over which you have control, your Facebook page, let's say you have a large organic audience on Facebook, that's your audience, right? You need to understand that, and you need to have somewhere in your head, or even better, on a piece of paper, to sit down and say, okay, in the last 30 days, here's what my audience looks like. I got 200, let's just say I've got 500 people in a Facebook group who I interact with in this way. And I have 10,000 people on an email list, or 1,000, or whatever it is, but you have to know that, right? Because if you don't know, if you have no idea what the map looks like, how the hell do you know where to go? Right? Like, and what most people do is like, oh yeah, I know what's going on in my business. I just need to figure out like what the next big thing is. It's like, okay, great. What is your cost to acquire a customer? I don't know. How many people, what percentage of people who become customers come from organic? Oh, I don't know. How many leads did you get in the last 30 days? Oh, I'm not sure. It's like, well, how the hell do you know where to go? Right? I mean, if you don't know those basic pieces of information, and I'm not suggesting Mary doesn't, I'm already in rant stage, which happened faster than I thought it would. But you have to know the story that your business is telling, because once you know that story, when you do something, the story changes a little bit. Now you know something new, right? So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the story of your business is that overwhelmingly you get organic traffic over which you don't have control, and the quality of that traffic, like the quality of the traffic is great because they consume all of your content, but you're not monetizing them. So lots of traffic, no monetization. Where's the opportunity? The opportunity is in monetization, right? You've got a boatload of traffic. Right? Don't try to, because this is what happens a lot. Someone's like, well, I have a ton of organic traffic, but I'm so worried Google's going to do this or Google's going to do that. And it's like, great, worry about that later when that traffic is generating revenue for you, right? The opportunity when you have lots of traffic and no offer is to create an offer. The opportunity when you have no traffic in an offer is to get traffic. Like that, those you have to know that story. All right, I'm going to stop ranting. My blood pressure's already up. Anything to contribute to that before we jump into whatever's next here? I'm not even sure what's next.
I think that was good. Mary got 25 minutes there.
Yeah. Our time. We have the worst. We are the worst examples of the planning fallacy ever. So the planning fallacy is just sort of this mental model around. It's very predictable mistake that we make, that we as a species underestimate how long it takes to do things. We are the best at it. We have nailed the planning fallacy. Like, oh, we'll answer Mary's will take at least 10 minutes, 25 minutes later. All right, let's see here. Let's go into the Q&A questions. We'll just keep following the same format because it seems to be working. At least it's working for me. Question from, I'll try to say most people's names, but if your name is, I'm challenged by, I don't want to offend anybody by mispronouncing anybody's names. So we'll just do give me a little latitude, please. No disrespect is intended if I mispronounce your name. All right, here's the question. There's question in context, and this one, it looks like there are question marks in the context, so we'll have fun with this. I'm going to have you answer this first, Andre, just because I haven't looked at it yet. So that'll be fair. All right, question. It's mentioned you should try to repel everyone. Oh, this is the one from before. This will be fun. It's mentioned you should try to repel everyone who's not your pocket of people. I'd love to hear who are Sean or Andre trying to repel? Is it someone who is too much of a Frank or somebody else? And in the context, reference to Frank, in an article like Frank and Matt and other entry point articles, you're obviously trying to appeal to someone who's a Frank and are trying to appeal to someone. Okay, and looking through most of your customers in TLB, they were Frank at some point. So you've successfully transitioned them from a Frank to a Matt. But if I get this right, you're not trying to repel Franks, because Frank is someone who you can transform with your belief system and turn into a happy client. So it's not the Franks that you're trying to repel. Then who is it? Is it everyone else who's not a Frank, or someone who's too much of a Frank? Well, you are the brains behind Frank and Matt, which has forever transformed the internet. So I'm curious how you think about this. I wonder if we think about this the same way. This is why I love these Q&A calls. We have no idea. We don't ever, I think a lot of people think we agree on everything. We fight like cats and dogs about stuff and hammer away at it. So it's always interesting to me when a question comes up that I'm like, I have no idea if we have the same perspective on this. So I can't wait. Have at it.
Yeah. So when I first created this idea, there needed to be contrast. So the contrast came through painting a picture of Frank, who represented a portion of our audience, a large portion, and then Matt. Now, Matt represented somebody who some people would be a Matt, and then when they read this, it's like, yeah, that's me. These guys are me. This is what I, they can hear me, see me. So it would pull Matt's forward as well, but it was really the pulling and the repelling from Frank's perspective. And the way that I painted out that picture is that it needed to be somebody that self-identified with themselves as, hey, everything that's just been written here, that's me. And then there was that realization, oh shit, that's me, Frank. But there's a pull. So Frank and Matt could be A and B. So, but there's a pull wanting to be Matt, so B in our structural tension diagram. But not all Franks want to be Matt. Many Franks, when they read that and they self-identify with that, it's they don't really. Matt isn't somebody that they want to go after. For them, it's that finding the shiny object, and they landed on our site and read our copy, and it ticks that box. They get the dopamine squirt, and maybe they buy, maybe they refund, but it's really they identify with certain traits in a way that either pulls them towards Matt or not. There's a choice that happens. And that's why I always kept saying, I always say that through your multi-page pre-sale, it doesn't have to be a multi-page pre-sale, through your front end, how you've engineered that, it's really to engineer this journey that somebody is pulled forward because they want to transform into this other thing. They are enrolled in this journey, but that's not everybody. Not everybody is pulled forward in that same way. There are many people that just, for them the whole thing is just about buying shiny objects, looking for those magic buttons and pushing them as much as they can. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's never going to be long term. And sometimes those people need to go through that part of the journey and learn something from it. Like, they've been on this journey, it just doesn't work after 2 or 3 years or however long it is. And then there's that realization. So there was a spectrum of people that had been on that journey, and the way that was framed resonated with many of those people, those Franks who wanted to be the Matt, or people that said, yeah, I'm a Matt, I'm thinking like a Matt, I just don't yet have the results, so this will help me. This is the program. I'm not going to go looking for the other shiny objects. So I think how that maps with what we're busy doing now is we really, Matt is the ideal customer that we're optimizing for. So I think that's really the beginning and end of it. Is our audience has evolved over time, and we're going after different varieties of Matts now, but that's within that framework, I guess.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I was trying to think as you were talking. I was trying to think about how do we think about this? Like, because I don't know that we're actively repelling. It's funny. In some ways we do. I mean, the get rich quick crowd, we definitely don't. I mean, we put up a lot of we say just over and over, and often this is, we say it in our newsletters and other places, but we often say it behind the scenes in the individual emails we get, when people are like, I need to make a bunch of money as fast as possible. Which one of your courses should I buy? I'm like, none. Like, go away. Like, that's your wrong place. So there's some of that. And I think, on some level, I imagine myself trying to discourage the bro marketers. I have such a visceral reaction to that. I've just been around it forever. And I just, it's like, gotta scale, bro. Like, it's like, just please, God, kill me. So I think somewhere in the back of my mind, and we call it out occasionally. And it's weird too. It's always dudes. It's the weirdest thing. I've never in my life heard a woman say something as stupid as guys say about marketing. I don't know why. I hope I didn't offend anybody by saying that, because I just made this distinction between the genders, but I don't know. It's sometimes I feel like we're on the wrong team, because it's just that I hate the bro marketer culture. Like, it's like, what thing can I do next to somehow wring some money out of the system, like it's somebody else's expense? And maybe that's not fair, but I mentioned that just because I know in the back of my mind, there is a persona in the back of my mind that's the bro marketer I've met at every conference I've ever been to. And that person, I don't want that person around. But I don't think we necessarily actively, the thing that I think we really do, and it's actually, I want to give credit to Amanda to Bond, who's on the call today, because she said the term the other day. I'm like, damn it, that's exactly it. Which is, I think we think in terms of like a meritocracy. Like, if you take a step, like if you do the work, like and when we say do the work, you don't need to go make $1 million. But if you come into our world and you go through a free training, right? Like, you go through it, you read it, and you ask us a question about it. Hell yeah. Like, we'll answer your question. We'll engage with you. But if you come into our world and you're like, hey, the vibe is very clear. I haven't done shit. Just tell me what I should do. It's like, hey, No, I'm not in to tell you what to do business, right? Go get your mom to help you with that, right? That's not the deal we're doing. What we're doing is we're externalizing our expertise in ways that we hope is accessible, to show you what the road looks like. But you need to be prepared to go down the road, and the more you walk toward us, the more we'll walk toward you, and the more we'll engage. So it does have that vibe of meritocracy, like the people who are doing the work. And it could be like, hey, you're on this call, you're asking questions like that. To me, that show, you've consumed the content, you want to improve something, you want to take steps forward, then we're right there with you. But if you want to be spoon-fed things, or want us to tell you specifically what to do, wrong place. And we do have an intellectual bent to what we're doing too, which I think is a filter. It's not necessary. It's more of an implicit filter that, and we're writers. So, if you want, just like marketing snacks, tactical snacks kind of stuff, that's not us. It's just, we're not going to do that. So I don't know if that really answered your question at all. It's a good question. What we gave is it's a very honest answer, which I think the short version is we don't have a monthly who do we exclude meeting, right? We don't, it's not that doesn't enter our conversation, but we implicitly, in how we want to show up in the world, we discourage whole categories of people. Yeah. All right. Let's go on to the next one.
I used to be very overt about dissuading certain people when they're reading stuff. It was in your face, and that is less so now. Now it's more, there's a lot of subtext, and we're based on how we write our stuff. There's a level of sophistication. So there's all these dimensions at play. It isn't a black and white sort of thing. This repelling people is a spectrum. There's like a multi-layered spectrum that can be a mix of pricing, the level of sophistication of how complex something may seem or be perceived as. It's like, damn, that is once they read something, it's they can just presume that the training behind that is going to be just outside of their comfort zone, so that repels them. And there's these layers that are more subtle that I think we use a lot more of now. I just wanted to add that extra piece.
Yeah, Rich asked a question too. That's a good question to add here, which is, he says, as your business evolves, does Matt evolve? I don't think so. Because Matt really is a aggregation. Frank and Matt are both archetypical aggregations of behaviors, and those behaviors don't really change over time. Frank's obsession with shiny and new and stop start and whatever's latest and greatest. It doesn't matter what is latest or greatest. Frank still, that's his jam. Matt's behaviors still archetypical behaviors. So what do you think? Have Frank and Matt evolved in your mind over time, or do they feel like they represented what you imagined then and what you imagine now?
Yeah, I was definitely modeling Frank over my journey over the past years that I'd learned. I was a Frank. I wasn't shy to say that, and I even say that I think everybody starts off as a Frank. It's certainly when we started, there was the Wild West. There were no sophisticated marketing courses. There was none of that. You just had to figure it out. So we all mostly started as Franks, and we went on this journey and we learned stuff along the way. But along the way, and also through the things that I read, one of the books that really informed how I thought about Matt, for example, was the book called The One Thing. But it's essentially, once you've figured out that this is how I want to show up and operate and do my business online, that's it. That is it. The like nuances of how you write your stuff and what you do, obviously, that tactical stuff changes, but at that point, there was no, like, all the shiny things just suddenly turned off. They didn't exist for me. And that's what I try to embody in the idea of Matt and how I expressed Matt. It's this person that knows this is the thing that I want. And I'm just going to double down and just do it until it works. And then it will work. And then it's about iterating it until it gets better, until you just keep doing it. And that was embodied in Matt. And as Sean said, that doesn't change. Even though over time we may attract different types of Matts, it's still somebody that thinks about their business as this thing that they're building, this single thing, and they're just going to double down and make this thing work, as opposed to keep changing all the time. So yeah, that represented them very broadly, and no matter what you say within those two broad buckets, it pulls a certain person forward and it repels a certain person away. So I think that's a universal thing, and you can use it, and it won't change over time.
All right. I'm laughing that we thought this was going to be a 2-hour call. We're adorable. All right, let's jump to the next question.
Thanks, Karma. Karma's just dropped the link to the book.
Yeah, there's a good interview with the author too, Gary Keller, and Tim Ferriss interviewed him. It's very good. I think we both really enjoyed that one. That's a good book. All right, next question from Sarah. I'll jump on this one first because I think our answer is the same, but you may have a different take on it. This will be fun too. So Sarah's question: When are you planning to continue with the durable business, and has your plan changed from the original? So yes, definitely planning to continue. Has the plan changed? Yes, but I think it's changed in a really cool way. So one of the problems with the durable business that we discovered after the fact, I think, Andre may have a totally different perspective on this. But what the problem I felt like we ran into was that it was never going to have an end, because the way that the 4 elements, the flywheel of the durable business, those 4 things are true. They change slightly over time, but they're true for any business of any size. So what got confusing once we really got into creating the durable business was, well, hell, when does this thing end? And when we put the durable business into the system with everything else, 2 really interesting things happen from my perspective. One, once you break out of that, the event horizon, that gravitational pull of the 0 to up to some number of whatever, income replacement number, job replacement number, 50,000, 75, 100,000, whatever it is. Once you break free of that gravitational pull, then you start to see the 4 elements continue, the 4 parts of that continue, but that's the point at which we really wanted people to have what we teach in Sphere of Influence, the Art of Email, and the Traffic Engine. So we solved that problem now that they're all together, which is outstanding. The other thing that we do the other direction is that there are going to be times in the durable business where you want to know more about a thing that you're working on. And let's just say, for example, that you validated an idea with an audience, you really have the broad strokes of it, and you're getting people who are raising their hand, or you're getting people who you've built enough of an email list that it's time to engage with them and present an offer. Well, you can go to the Art of Email into the PLS module, and you have that available now. So from my perspective, putting the durable business in with our courses makes our course, the other 3 courses, so much better, because they all work on that same flywheel, which I think becomes foundational to everything. And it makes the durable business so much better, because when it's time to do the work, we can now just reference it rather than have to recreate it in the durable business in a light way. We can point to the wherever the sort of canonical source for that is. It's very similar to what's happened with Momentum Builder Workshop, that you can do that workshop, but realize, I really, I want to have a better understanding of a bridge email. When we make this soft transition in the Momentum Builder Workshop, I want to really understand that better. Great, go to that module in the Art of Email. Like, that's the idea. And I love the durable business. I love everything about it. So I'm really excited to work on that and to really build that out. But I think to build it out, to me, that's more of it it it's more spread through the system than seeing it as a separate thing. Um, and the next phase is telling you about the Project X, which is a really, really fun thing for us because it's in the PKM space. And that just, I love that. So I don't know, Andre, any thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, it's just what Sean's just said. And then the other layer, and again, we haven't done this yet. We've been talking about, we slightly divergent on a few elements of this, but in broad strokes, it's that first part of the course is to really understand these certain ingredients. And once you understand a certain ingredients as a cook, you get to create recipes, right? So one of the things I think we're going to get to, because now that everything's bolted together, you have access to everything, is at some point shortly inside of the durable business, we can present certain, let's just, for lack of a better word, think of it as a recipe, which is there's a list of ingredients. And if you want a certain outcome, so if your little business that you've started, you've gone around this flywheel, you've gone around a few times and there's a certain result you've had, well, based on a certain outcome now, as you want to increase that, you can read a certain little recipe, and the recipe would just be context that then points to various places inside of our, modern marketing system or any of the parts, and it can just point to different, and it can deep link into certain places inside of the courses. But though you'll get to a certain place in the durable business, that then you get to pick how you want to continue this journey, and based on that journey, it'll just point you off in these different directions. And I think that's going to be fun to create. But there's obviously a certain opportunity cost. There's only Sean and I, doing the content and writing it and tweaking it and changing things, and we've got a lot to do. So it's definitely going to get done, and it's something that we're both excited about doing. We just need to figure out exactly how we're going to execute on that. But we do know that once we've figured out how we want that to look, and we start and we do it, I think it's going to be fun, and it's going to be unique, that you won't find that anywhere else in any other course, because it's so systemic. You'll get to a certain point in the durable business, and you can literally just choose your own adventure, and all the content is there outside of the durable business module. It'll be throughout the system, and I think that's exciting, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And the Project X component is something that we're going to create within that, an expression of us doing the work ourselves and attempting to put our neck on the block and go outside of TLB and create something.
Yeah, because why not do things as hard as possible? That's right. That's our strategy. All right, I'll jump down to Robbie's question. This is probably an easy one for me to answer. How much are you guys incorporating paid ads into your systems? Could you run through any recent success stories? So we did, we ran paid traffic, Facebook paid traffic last year. I can't remember the exact dates. I just pulled open Wicked Reports to see if I could find the dates. So for us, it's funny. We turned traffic off in, I believe it was November 21st, because we didn't want to run traffic. We had already made a decision. We were putting everything together as into the system at that point. We didn't want to, and we didn't really particularly want to run traffic in December when costs are skyrocketing because everybody's trying to advertise. We haven't redone that yet. That's on the agenda for later. And I'll actually hit that just a little bit in a second. But the difference with us, and I want to be really, really clear about this, that there are two, and I've run a lot of paid traffic, and there are two ways to think about it. And they're all around when when does customer acquisition cost and average order value, when do those two things meet up? We don't have a front end offer in our business, meaning we do not have an offer that is designed to acquire customers to offset the cost of the acquisition of those customers. Because of that, we needed to think about paid traffic entirely differently, which is we needed to take a financial risk, saying we're willing to spend X amount of dollars to get however many people that brings into our world. And we know that the monetization of that ad spend is going to occur essentially in two ways that we're going to pay attention to. The first is over 90 days, sort of what happens over 90 days. And because again, we do what we teach. So we know that we're going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% of the initial sales we're going to get in that first 90 days. But what we really care about, and why we have to use a tool like Wicked Reports, because it's one of the few tools that will do this, is we then also need to be able to look at that group of ad spend, that money spent in the last year, and track it over 2 years, because that's going to tell us, it's going to show that how we're doing what we're doing, how that plays out over the appropriate time frame, not over 30 days. We're not in a 30-day optimization business. So I mention all of that just to be very cautious about taking any lesson from what we're doing and applying it to what you're doing, because if the underlying structure of what you're trying to accomplish is not the same, you should not take anything from how we're approaching this at all. We have seen probably in the neighborhood of what I would have expected to see on the 90-day window. But then of course we introduced this entire, we have turned the entire system on its head. So we had 4 core courses. We were bringing people into a relationship building series that emphasized all 4 of those. And then all of a sudden we don't have 4 courses and we have this one thing. So we've very much changed the playing field. I still expect the economics of that to work out well over the time frame that we anticipated. The real change for us is going to be post. I'm guessing it's probably going to be May, maybe June. Once we get into June and it's summer, then summer sucks from a sales perspective. So I don't know what happens if we get too close to June. But in broad strokes, what we knew this year was going to look like is we were going to move as many people of our existing customers to the system as possible, first to create a critical mass of people in the system. We've done that. That happened in early February. We knew after that, the 2 things that we were doing, the 2 big things that we were doing is launching TLB Lab, which that's going to happen at the end of March 31st through April 7th will be the actual promotion time. We'll do a PLS before that. There's going to be a founder's discount, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Founder's discount. And at the same time, we're also doing TLB Elite, which is our high level group coaching. We planned all of that to happen first. Those were the series of priorities. Once that is in place, on the other side of that is where we are going to shift our focus sort of to 2 tracks, primarily, broadly speaking. One track is building out the system and creating the content for Lab and working with our group in Elite. That's a big track of it. And the other track is we need to create a specific front end offer for our business that we can use to monetize the acquisition of customers through paid traffic. I'm sure we'll do some case study stuff about how we're thinking about that in the system. Lots of that will happen. But in the absence of having an offer that monetizes traffic, paid traffic's a different animal. It's a very different animal. So I don't know if that's the complete answer, but yeah, see, there's a lot in the chat here. Wicked Reports, wickedreports.com. There are alternatives. We don't have affiliate relationships with Wicked Reports, whatever. I know Scott DeGrosselier is the founder. He's a dear friend of mine. I worked with him. He was a client for years. I know Wicked Reports backwards and forwards. It does the thing that Wicked Reports does that other things don't, is calculate lifetime value over a very long period of time and go back and assign that value to the original source of the lead. And that's very uncommon. So we ran traffic campaigns last year that I will know the economics of for years ahead. And that is critical for our business understanding paid traffic. If your business model doesn't require that, if your business model works on a customer acquisition, a shorter time frame, a 30-day customer acquisition window where you have a lower cost offer that you can monetize that traffic in 30 days and see it in tools like Google Analytics, great. I'm not advocating for Wicked Reports. When you do consider a higher level program, I happen to love Wicked Reports. Happy to talk with anybody individually about that. No financial relationship with them. It's good, does what it's supposed to do. And it was, I like the fact that Wicked Reports was created by a data scientist. Scott he is the geekiest data scientist in the world who wants to get the data. Like, that's what he cares about. He's not a marketer. And I adore Scott. And I've told him this a million times, but he's not a good marketer. He's an awesome data scientist. And that's what I want in a platform that does data science. I don't want a good marketer to tell me how great it is. I want a data scientist to give me the data. So that'll be the last thing. I can use Wicked Reports for brick and mortar. Yes, but I don't want to take this off on the side tangent. Yes, you can do it. Go look at Wicked Reports, get a demo, ask them the questions. Their demos are great. Their staff they're very knowledgeable. They can answer it, and they'll be honest with you about it. Okay, anything you want to add? Anything to paid traffic, or do you?
I was going to say exactly the same as you.
Nice answer. All right, Matthew, for a tiny marketing agency that uses the system, do you have any recommendations for how to get clients to engage in questions and answer sessions? For example, empathy map, chain of beliefs, questions related to world building on a level deep enough to produce answers that I can work with. And threats of violence, you thought about that? Bring a hammer, I'll do this from Andre first and then hand it off to you, because I've dealt with this for 2 decades. I dealt with this, right? Like, clients are funny. They want outcomes. In my experience, the relationship between the outcomes clients work, the relationship between the outcome clients want and the work they're willing to do does not appear to have any correlation. It's kind of like, hey, I want you to go do magic things, and I'm not really going to help you get there. For not every client, but some clients, a large number of clients. So to specifically answer your question, I think you have to be the expert and the adult in the room. And that means, and it's a great way for positioning yourself as the expert. But to be very clear, the way you do things gets better results than the alternatives. Assuming that's true, assuming you can do the work, that you have the experience and the expertise, and that you can deliver. If you can say that, it's not bragging if you can do it. If you can say that, then you need to be able to sit across from a client and say, in order to get the best results for this project, I'm going to need you to engage with me on a series of whatever activities or a series of research, whatever it is. And doing that is critical to the success of this enterprise. If we just hit the high notes and we don't really get into it, we're not going to get the best result, and I will not be able to deliver the best result for you. And my integrity as a professional demands that I get the best possible result for you as my client. Like, once you've made that framing, as soon as the client steps into that frame, you own the frame. So anytime the client, if the client buys into that, they're like, okay, got it, we understand. The moment that happens, anytime you meet resistance in the future, you go back to that frame. So when the client says, we don't have time to do an empathy map, but we did this exercise 3 years ago, and I can send you the Google Doc to it. The moment you say yes to that, you're training your client not to respect what you said. That's when you have a full stop. And this is hard. And believe me, I've been in situations where I needed the client for financial reasons, and I didn't want to do this, but it will cause you endless frustration and pain if you acquiesce to this. The moment you say to the client, I need X, and they say, oh, okay, well, we'll do this instead, it'll be just as good. You stop right then and you go back to the frame that you set, and you say, listen, I appreciate that this work is difficult and time consuming, and that there are other things you would want to be doing. However, in the beginning of this relationship, I made it clear to you that my integrity demands I get the best results on your behalf. A 3-year-old document that your team put together is not what I need to do my job well. I need us to do this exercise. And if you're not willing to do that, then I can't deliver the best from you, and that's not acceptable to me. So when should we schedule the time to do this exercise properly? Like, that's what professionals do. It's scary as hell. And you will have clients that tell you to go pound sand, right? You have clients that say no. And guess what? There's a name for them. They're called former clients, right? Now, if you need the cash, and I get it, it's not always that easy. But then if you absolutely have to have the cash and you think the relationship is salvageable, in that same situation, you can say, listen, in order to do my best work for you, I really need us to go through this exercise. If for some reason that's truly not possible for you to do, and I need to use this, whatever, 3-year-old document, I will look at that document and see if I can extract what I need from it. I will do my best to make that happen. But I may have additional questions for you. Who should be responsible for answering those questions? And then you go do the work and you come back to them. But then you haven't really given up too much ground, because the deal with clients is they will treat you the way you train them to treat you. And if you say one thing, but you're willing to always acquiesce to their demands, then you become the service provider who does that, and they'll drive a train through that open door. That's just human nature. Doesn't make them bad people. Just that's how people work. But when half of your job working with clients is to train your clients to be good clients and to hold the line. And it's hard as hell, but believe me, it's worth it, especially if you're just getting started and you want to attract good clients. Because when you act like that, when you're a professional and you sit there and you show up as a professional, you would attract clients who are willing to pay for professionals, because most of the world are full of dumbasses who are not professionals, especially in the service business. Every asshat in the world thinks they can go out and start a Facebook ads marketing agency tomorrow, right? And that's 80% of who you're dealing with are those people. Don't be them. Right? Be the person who says, this is what's required to do this work right. And that's the only thing I'm going to do, because I have a fiduciary responsibility to you as my client to get the best results. And you're either going to help me with that, or I'm going to go find another client, because that's what I do. That's who you want to be. Anyway, all right, Andre, you want to do the nice version of that? We're like good cop, bad cop. It's like I'm always bad cop.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm the impatient cop is really what I am. The no fucks to give. Like, we can't see that. Sorry, we'll edit that out of the transcript. I'm the no something alternative to give cop. Yikes! Damn it. All right, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I don't really have much to say. At the end of 2019, I won't mention the client, but a really big company approached Sean and I to do work for them. So although it wasn't necessarily an agency type arrangement, it was us just strategizing with them. They were familiar with our work, and so they approached us within that frame. They had recognized that their style of very aggressive marketing was atrophying over, and they needed to try different things. So they were completely open with coming on board and do exactly what we said. That eventually turned into a bit of an agency component, but they went and did the audience and offer masterclass exercises, because that's part of the stuff we do. So when we said, go do this, these are the questions that you need to bring back to us at the end of the week. They went and did. There was no questioning us, none of that. They just went and did the work. And I think if I ever had an agency, it would be, this is our expertise, and this is what we do. And if you're looking for that, then that frame kind of establishes the whole front end conversation. And I recognize that most agencies aren't like that. It's a bit more messy. But when Sean and I open Elite shortly, that's essentially, Sean and I have a certain bunch of expertise that is wrapped up in and codified inside of the system. All our stuff that we currently do and have been doing for decades is wrapped up and codified, and it's available to everybody inside of the system. And when we open up Elite, those people, it's almost going to be, although it's not an agency thing because we're not doing the work for them, but we're going to be helping people make sense of this and go and do the work and be be part of their feedback loop when they come up against obstacles along the way, which is normal. So I think, again, that kind of answers that in a sideways sort of way. But I think if you have a certain, this is what we do, and it's very clear. And if that's not what you want, then I'm sorry, we can't take you on as a client, and that solves that problem. But again, I'm saying that for someone that's never really been in the client business.
I think what I'll give everybody my favorite gift to wrap up this question too, which is, we've said other places, I love questions. This is the best question in the world for clients, but it's also a great question for teams. It's a great question if you're a solopreneur. It's the best. It's my favorite question, I think. But questions are like children, though. I have so many that are favorites. This is the one that I've used so many times. The question is very simple. What are we optimizing for? Right? So when a client comes to you and they hire you, like, oh, you get these results and we've heard great things about you. Excellent. And then say, okay, one of the first things we need to do is we need to create an empathy map. By the way, that noise you can hear in the background is a snowplow going by my house because we have so much snow. It's ridiculous. So if we say, all right, we've got this client, you say, okay, great. We're going to need to do this exercise. We're going to create an empathy map. And we need 90 minutes from your 3 people on your team. And they go, oh, that's going to be hard. We've got this thing we could do. We kind of did this a while ago. We can just give you that. That's a perfect opportunity to stop and say, okay, I want to make sure I understand what's happening here. I want to know exactly what we're in this relationship. What are we optimizing for here? Are we optimizing for this result that you've hired me for, that you want to do whatever, increase sales by 20% over XYZ? Are we optimizing for that, or are we optimizing for what's easy? Because the moment you pose that question to somebody, everything stops, and they're like, "Well, no, we want this result." Great. Well, in order to get that result, we need to do the damn work, right? Like that's the connection. There's actually a causal connection between the result you want and the activities you do. Oh my God, who knew? Right? Don't bring this attitude to the party because it pisses people off. But that's the voice that I hear in my head, and that's the question to ask all the time. What are we optimizing for? So when you sit down, and there's always going to be some asshat in the marketing department who is optimizing for their own job security, and they don't want to take risks. They don't want to do anything new because they have to go to the boss. And if there's a mistake or things don't perform, they're terrified. So they undermine everything that you do, or they don't want you to look better than them. There are a million things that can happen. And what are we optimizing for externalizes that stuff. Right. And I use this all the time. I had a client for a while that was just a consultative thing. They were running Google search, and they were doing it so poorly. It was an auto parts dealer thing, and they just gave every part of the business the same amount of money. And the way that everybody wanted to get, spread that money across a million things, and it just made no sense. And then I came in and I was like, and I just did a very quick assessment. What the top 5 products were they? What are they? What is the most profitable? Can we spend all of your budget within an area that you could say free ground shipping? The answer was yes. So they went from like advertising 200 products, only of which only a few were actually selling. We re-optimized the entire account in like hours to only focus on, I think it was 4 or maybe 5, I can't remember exactly, a limited number of products that sold really well. The conversion rates were outstanding from some factors on price or whatever. We only advertised those in neighboring states where they could get it UPS ground shipping for free anyway, because UPS got there in 2 days. It's the second day, I guess. So it was like 2-day shipping. So their ads all said, free, shipping, and they didn't get an upgraded shipping. They just got it in 2 days, but they didn't know that. And it was insanely profitable, like few hours of work, insanely profitable. I was asked back like 60 days later. They had completely changed the entire thing back because the different parts of the organization didn't feel like they were getting their fair share. So they all got, their fair share. And the owner was sitting across the table from me. He goes, "Yeah, that ads don't work for us." And I was so irritated. I said to him, I was like, "No, you don't know how to make ads work. I made ads work. You broke it." And he was like, and he was, incensed. What are you talking about? I said, because you're optimizing for the wrong thing. And he sort of looked at me puzzled. I'm like, you're optimizing to make all the division heads in your business happy, so they got their fair share. And that doesn't produce good financial results. I was optimizing for financial results. I win, right? That's the deal. You're optimizing for the wrong thing. Now, I'd love to tell the happy ending version of the story, is that he saw the light and realized I was so smart. I think he called me an asshole, and I left shortly after. It didn't end well, because people don't like to hear that. So he wield this weapon with caution. But I can tell you, there is no more powerful question as a client services professional, and no more powerful question to have in the back of your mind as an effective human being, than asking yourself at every opportunity, what am I optimizing for? Because I can tell you from experience, when I optimize for being right, especially if it's in a personal relationship, like with my spouse, don't optimize for being right, because that's not the right thing to optimize for, right? There are lots of like figure out what you're optimizing for, and make all of your decisions subordinate to that. And get your clients to do the same thing, because what you'll find with clients is what they tell you that they are optimizing for, and the actual bullshit that happens, what they're really optimizing for, generally have no relationship to one another. Like, they'll say, we're optimizing for sales, and that's it. We're a resort. We want to put heads in beds. And it's like, right, except you've got all this politics that happens behind the scenes that undermines your results. So what are we really optimizing for? Okay, deep breath. Let's move on to the next one. Penny, I answered yours directly. I really appreciate that. So thank you. I just typed in a response. I'll reach out to you by email. I'd love to see those. That'll be a great asset to have. Okay. Nick, what's up, Nick? So if any of you have had a great experience and support in the last, 6, 8, 9 months, it's Nick. I mean, Nick has transformed support for us. It's just, if we made the perfect support person, if we went into a lab like with Schwarzenegger and made like a cyborg, Terminator, perfect support person, I don't know if it would look exactly like Nick, but it would be Nick. All right, thanks for the question, Nick. I'll read the question, and then I'll hand it over to you, Andre, and it'll give me time to get my blood pressure back down. Okay, Sean talked about a distinction between outcome and experience when thinking through A to B stages. Outcome seems pretty clear, but can you dig deeper into what you mean by experience and how that impacts your decision making? What do you think, Andre?
Well, he's got your name there. I think
he just said I talked about it. He didn't say I should answer it.
I think I'm not sure how to answer this other than how I did it earlier on, which is experience for me would be, there's a certain level of understanding I can bring to bear in doing a certain thing. So as I mentioned earlier on, there's certain assets that I enjoy creating, and I have experience over doing them for well over a decade, and it's just, I enjoy it. It's easy. It's, when I say easy, nothing's easy. It's like writing a book is easy. It's not, but relative. I can do that. That's an easy thing to prioritize highly on my B. But me doing something that I've not done before, or I have less experience doing, I'm going to prioritize that a bit lower down. But Sean and I have this overlap of experience. So when we optimizing for a certain outcome that we would like for B, I think that's for us where experience comes to bear, is we have this nice overlap that works for us. And when we're doing our front end offer later on, Sean's going to be doing leading most of that. I can just hang on to his coattails and go for a ride. But then I'll be, while he's doing that, I'll be creating other assets that are going to be complementary to that. So I think that's how I would answer that. I'm not sure if that's what Nick wanted, or if you've got another way of going about that.
Yeah, I love this question. Love this question, because there's a wonderful book by George Leonard called Mastery. Every time someone, I've been a martial artist since I was 12. Every time somebody tests for black belt, at their testing, I give them a copy of Mastery. And what George Leonard really, when he talks about, is we spend on the path to mastery, you spend most of your time on what he calls the plateau. You're just at this, you don't feel like you're making any progress. It's just, making the donuts, one thing after the other, day after day, working on your craft. And then all of a sudden, boom, you've leveled up. And it seems like it happens like all of a sudden, whoa, what the hell just happened? But the reality is it's the day after day that's getting you there. And then you notice that big jump. And now there's a new plateau. And like that's I have that in my mind, I think, when I think about this, the central idea that if you're doing something that's really important to you, when you're on the path to mastery, you're going to spend the overwhelming amount of time in that making the donuts zone where you're just doing the work. So if that's true, then you want that experience to be positive. Like I don't want to think about things like, all right, how could we make $100,000 next month? Like to me, that's not, I mean, that could be part of it. If that, for some reason, that was meaningful, but it has to have the qualifier of the experience, right? So how could we accomplish some outcome? How could we create this asset or do this thing, but not at the expense of something? That's one way to think about it. But when I talk about experience, I think about, and actually I'll use the example Andre gave. After we're on the other side of lab being real and in the world, and elite being in the world, which will be, beginning of April. Those things will be happening. Then we've checked all the boxes of what we intended to do in the first quarter. There's an importance that need to take some time to celebrate that. Like, not necessarily have to have a party, but April 7th is my birthday, and I'm happy to have cake. So that might be an actual party. But then after the celebration, like for me, I know the next thing, and it's not exactly the next thing, because there's so much we want to do, especially with a lab and a lead and working on the system. There's just a lot there that we want to do. But when it's time for me to start thinking about how do we craft a front-end offer, because we don't have the offer, and we don't have the traffic campaigns, and we don't have any of the assets. So we get to build all of that. And when I think about what the A to B tension will be for me in that experience, it's not just I want these things to be true. It's I love pushing myself right up against the edges of my abilities. That's part of an experience I really like. So when I'm thinking about that, one of the things that I want to think about are what questions do I have about this process that I feel like I could spend some time in research mode. Like, I want to go out and check my thinking on some of these things. I want to talk to people like Amanda, who's on this call, who's done tremendous amounts of Facebook advertising. Like, I want to talk with professionals like that. Like, I want to think about like that's experience. Like, I'm not going into a conversation like that with an outcome. I'm not like, I need to get, top 3, suggestions from Amanda and put her on a list. It's not that. It's, I want to jam with a fellow professional, right? I want to do lots of that. I have lots of colleagues, and I want to also, in that process, I want to improve my writing and how there's so much I want to experience in the creation of those assets that really, for me, the outcome is just the vehicle for the experience. And that happens a lot for me. I like to set the tension of a point B, knowing that if I do that well, the experience of getting there will light me up. It will be the things that I like to do. And for me, because I have this seemingly hardwired part of my being, that I like to be up against it. Like, I like to be up against my abilities and feel like I'm stretching, not that I'm breaking, but that I'm stretching. And that's why I often will do things like, if it takes 6 weeks, let's shave a week off, because that'll drive the behavior. Or if I'm trying to get to a certain level and create a certain thing, I ask myself in advance, like, what would make that experience even better? What could I learn while I'm doing this? Like, where do I think I could shore up some of my knowledge, or where do I think I could like come at this a different way. And that just, it shows up. Like the manifesto for the art of email was a good example about that. Like I wrote the base for that, and it was not my default writing style. Like where we introduced some characters, and then we introduced some characters that were going to be the vehicle for an idea that wound its way throughout the entirety of it. Like I was right up against my abilities the entire time working on that. And I like that. That's experience. Like I want that in everything that I do. But that doesn't mean that should be you. It just means that the things that light you up is, for some people, what may light you up is, like, you know what, if I want to write 1,000 words a day, every day for 30 days. So I'm going to do this thing that will pull me toward that. And I'm not 1,000 word a day person. I write more sporadically. So that wouldn't motivate. But some people may get motivated by that, just step by step by step, each day doing a thing, like checking the box. You did it. You feel good about it. It builds. Like if that progression feels good for you, make that your experience of the thing. I think there's some intersection of outcome and experience, where I think of the outcome being the vehicle that allows me to have the experience that I'm going for. It's not, the outcome matters far less to me, because the outcome in a weird way is in service to the experience. If that makes sense. That may not make any sense at all. Happy birthday,
Yeah.
Sherry, by the way.
And that's, I think that's another reason why Project X, we've chosen Project X to be a certain thing, because it's something that we both love. This stuff in the PKM space, we love, and we want to understand that more and deeper. And the experience of us doing the research and doing the work lights us both up. So that, just doing that project, regardless of the outcome, is worth everything for us. And it just so happens that once we start to do that, the outcome's probably going to be the easy part. But we really want to sink our teeth into that experience of just deep diving into this thing and uncovering things that we didn't know, that is going to increase our own understanding of thinking, of creating ideas and interacting with our thoughts in ways that maybe are less obvious and may not even be obvious to us just yet. But we want to go on that journey to discover what those things are. And that is part of this thing that we're calling Project X, that will be inside of the durable business at some point.
And it just occurred to me too, that the system in many ways is an expression of this idea, because it's hard to teach people the parts and always want to be able to talk about all of it. Like, that's hard. The experience of that feels less than. And I think, at least for me, one of the things that drove a lot of the decision making to put things together is to eliminate that problem, and to be able to say, we want to, and it just sounds like hyperbole, and I don't mean it, because this is the voice in my head. But when we were talking about the system, we were imagining what the system would become. In my mind, and this is still very true, in my mind, the system is I want it to be the best in the world. Like, I want it to be the thing that has no peer. And not, when I say no peer, meaning like there's something that's 90% as good. I don't want there to be any, I want it to be a category of one, that it's kind of like you could go do a million other things, or you could go do this one thing. You could like, this is the solution. Like, I don't think it's there yet. And the beauty of it is it may never be there, but that pulls me, not because I want to sit back and brag to my bro marketer friends, I've got the best thing, and Andre and I've got the best thing. It's not who we are. We don't give a shit about that. It's not external. Like, I hate external feedback. Well, I like a little bit positive external feedback, but I don't want to want it. But I do want to know that I left everything on the mats. Like, I've got nothing else to give. We say this in Taekwondo, when someone tests, especially a high rank, but when somebody tests, when they walk off the mats, if they've done it right, they've got nothing left. They left it all out there. And I want the system to be that. And it won't ever be that in total, because we're always evolving and our thinking is always going through it. Our thinking goes through this process that Zonka Ahrens, who wrote How to Take Smart Notes or Smarter Notes, I love, he said this in an interview, that it's this idea of that we're constantly building up complexity, and then complexity hits a certain critical mass, and then from that complexity you find a new simplicity, and then you get that new simplicity, and then it builds up to even greater complexity, and then you bring it down to simplicity again. That's what we're doing. The system right now, full disclosure, is complex as hell. We've put 4 things together that, yes, they're underlying those 4 things are shared principles and they play really well together. But the next evolution is to say, wow, this is complex. We've got this large complexity. How do we take that complexity and find the elegant simplicity in it? And then we'll do that, and we'll get to this newer sense of simplicity. Doesn't mean we're going to change everything or anything, but we'll create maybe entry points or overviews or some understanding of the whole thing that's simpler and more elegant and easier to navigate. And then we'll, over time, new ideas, new questions, new things that we'll do, new involvement with people who are in elite, new feedback from lab, feedback in the community. Things will happen and it will be a little more complex then. And then we'll come back and we'll make it simpler. And that's it. And that's that experience. Like, hell yeah, I just want to do that all day, every day, forever. That's it. Like, that's all I'm asking for. All right, next question. Anonymous attendee, why are you so anonymous? What's the deal? Sorry, anytime we have an anonymous person show up, I imagine them, they're like Jason Bourne, they're like peeking around the corner. Like, I can't tell you who I am, I'd have to kill you. All right, sorry if this was already answered. I got on late. What actual metrics should I be paying attention to? I sell courses in a paid newsletter. How do I actually calculate the metrics of a happy customer? So we're gonna answer this question in 2 parts, because this will be you'll get to see Andre and I thinking very differently about a subject, I think. So the first part of your question about all the metrics and courses and stuff, I'm going to create something for the system that's it'd probably be a Loom video where I just walk through like how to think about metrics, because I love metrics. And we'll do that in the next week or 2. I'll just jam on that. So that'll be there. Penny has offered some worksheets and stuff. I'm going to jam with Penny. We'll come up with some cool stuff for that. We'll get that in a new section because we need this in the system. But now the big question, Andre, I'm going to have you answer this first. How do I actually calculate the metrics of a happy customer? Please proceed.
Bastard. Yeah. Well, we've spoken about the obvious ones, minimizing refunds and stuff like that. But that doesn't really get to the essence of what makes or what represents or embodies a happy customer. And my thinking about this is constantly evolving. And more recently, it's evolved again. So I won't express it all here because it's something that I've got to work with in my monkey mind, and eventually I'll get some clarity. But it's happy, this thing called happy customer. We have a whole bunch of customers on this call now, and more customers inside of our business. And I think happy for all of them it's going to be slightly different. But ultimately, there's probably some things that are common. And I think one of them comes down to understanding. And again, there's not a spreadsheet for this. I don't think there's or there can be a spreadsheet for this, other than the obvious thing that I've already mentioned. But understanding is something that's nuanced. And again, understanding is going to be different for everyone. Everyone's coming in with a different worldview and a different way of of not just seeing the world through their lens, but seeing their business through that lens and seeing the work that we do through that lens. And then there's attention. It's, every single one of our customers, their attention is pulled in a million different ways. Andre and Sean, we just two nut jobs that happen to be somewhere in your sphere of influence that you pay attention to some of the time. We would love to say you spend most of your attention on the work we do, but that's not reality. So I think it comes down to really just understanding these different dimensions that represent what they could be. One example is when I first, myself and my original business partner with TLB1. So this is back in 2011. Steve Gray and myself, when we first created TLB, and we created a course that spanned over 7 months. So somebody would make a purchase and they would go through this training, and the curriculum took 11 months, because that's how we felt. There was so much stuff. It was so dense that we felt it would be a disservice to put it into this thing that will be accessible from day one. So that contributed to how we understood what a happy customer would be. It's somebody that we could gradually take them, just like somebody goes to university. They're not given the entire curriculum dumped on their lap and say, there we go. Exams are in 6 months, go do your best. You go through this thing and it's gradual. And the reason is because of, understanding plays out in that way. So that's why we did that. And then it's like weird. We got to the end of the training, and then we surveyed all of our customers and those that responded. The large majority, maybe the large majority is overstating it, but there was a significant portion of people that were still stuck on like module 1, which was how to find your niche. That's the wording that we used back then. It's your this thing that you're going to go and do and create in the world, and the segment of people that you're going to go after, and these are your people. Well, people were stuck on that. That part was so difficult for them that the other 6 months of the training almost became irrelevant. And we only realized that after the fact, right at the end. So although we were, with the best of intentions, we were trying to engineer a way to disseminate our training in a way that we were going to create a happy customer. We didn't create a happy customer for many of them, is because they were still stuck right in the very beginning, and then nothing else mattered. So it's things like that. It's understanding the nuances of a market, and that is not easy to really wrap your head around because there's just so many dimensions to it. So I'm not being specific on purpose, because you can't shine a light on this thing. It's just a feeling. There needs to be a feedback loop where you're interacting with your customers. Does the attention you have, that you command with those customers, is that atrophying over time? And there's obviously going to be some level of atrophy, but what is it? I mean, I suppose that's can be measured in some way, but yeah, it's just trying to define what those dimensions are, and then really doing everything to try and trying to make those elements more accessible. And understanding is one. I mean, we'd be doing everybody a disservice if we just lump this on everyone. There's a reason why we're doing this Q&A call, right? It's because we're trying to learn or understand what don't you understand, so then we can then go and put it inside there. And because without the level of understanding with any of our courses, let alone this thing called the system that we're still busy trying to articulate, if somebody just is exposed to this and literally shit their pants. I'm sorry about the visual there, but they're just going to bounce straight away. And although they may not refund, because the level, the perception of the stuff that they've just bought, that level of awesomeness, it's clear, it's there, and that person may not refund. So therefore, you can't even measure that element. But it just becomes, we just become another statistic on the virtual bookshelf. And over time, maybe even a short period of time, we just are filtered out of that person's attention to the point where, even though they haven't unsubscribed, even though they haven't refunded, we have lost the ability to communicate with them in a way that's meaningful, and that's a disservice. So that represents somebody that's not a happy customer. So I'm sorry if I'm skirting around the issue, but it is complicated, and I think it's just understanding that it is complicated, and that you do your absolute best to try and constantly increase the experience that somebody has with this course that they purchased, or this thing that the skill that they want to get better at. And on the other side of that, on the other side of the understanding, is the doing component. And part of the doing component is getting a result. And these breakdowns can happen at any point. Somebody can, like, conceptually, I get this, I love, art of email, I understand this. And then they stare at their business, and there's this fear that, oh my God, I've got to change everything. What do I change? And that paralysis that comes from that fear, that's also us doing a disservice, because again, we can't be responsible for somebody else's outcome, but we can be responsible to try and make it so accessible that it becomes a no-brainer to take it and use it, and ultimately try and get a result from it. And I think the ultimate, checkbox for happy customer is somebody that's understood enough of the training that matters to them. So obviously the system is made up of a whole bunch of parts, and this all comes together in this systematic thing, and people are going to be interacting with different components, and they are going to choose certain things and put it in their business that makes sense and get a result. And if that's a positive result, now we're moving in the direction of happy customer. And I think out of all of our customers that have stayed with us the longest, and we still have their attention, are the ones that have understood enough and then gone and put it into their business, even if it's messy, and got a result. And then that becomes a feedback loop, and they just run on that little, on that flywheel. And we stay front and center as somebody worth paying attention to, because they can see that this stuff works. So I think that's my longest answer.
I appreciate you making me feel better about saying fuck earlier. Thank you. I so love this question, because this is a play. I know everyone thinks that we just, well, I think a lot of people think I'm actually Tyler Durden, that it's like I'm just an alter ego and I'm not a real person. So this is going to be, maybe this is all engineered too, but this is a place we really disagree, I think, in many ways. And I love that we finally get an opportunity for people to realize that we disagree about a lot. So I'll come at happy customers from a slightly different perspective. And I'll draw attention to one of the things that Anonymous, aka Jason Bourne, mentioned, which is, how do I actually calculate the metrics of a happy customer? Because my fear with the happy customer thing always is people are like, well, shit, I don't know how to put all these parameters into a spreadsheet, so I just won't do it, right? And it's like, no, don't. It's not an excuse not to do things. So the way I think about it from a metrics perspective is, because this becomes actionable, is it's simple. It's customer, the gateway to becoming a happy customer is you have to be a customer, which means you don't refund. And the reason, and it's incomplete, but from a metrics perspective, what you need to know that can change your behavior That's the only thing metrics are supposed to do. They tell you a story that informs your future behavior. That there's no other reason to look at metrics if it's not going to change your behavior. That's why I don't give a shit about when someone's like, well, what percentage of our audience does X, Y, Z? I don't care. It's not actionable, right? So actionable metrics. If you know that you're generating 100 customers a month and 30 days later or 60 days later, whatever your refund period is, 60 days later, you have 50 customers who stayed. So you have a 50% refund rate. You got a problem, right? And if so then it becomes actionable where you're like, whoa, maybe I've turned the persuasion dial a little too high. So, and let's look at some comparisons, right? So let's say you're doing 100, you get 100 order, you're just hardcore countdown timers, bonus stacking. I mean, you name it, you've gone through the best and brightest offer guys and women on the internet, and you got it all there. And you can convert people like a machine, and you're getting 100. Your conversion rate is like stupid high, but your product sucks, your support sucks, whatever, the experience sucks, or not, or you're just really good at selling, and you get 100 purchases a month, and then 50% of them go away. So you pull a bunch of it so that you're left with 50, right? But then you dial down a bunch of that nonsense and you only get 80 sales. Well, is that better or worse? Well, who the hell knows, right? Most people are gonna say, oh my God, my business sucks. I went from 100 sales to 80, I'm losing ground. Well, what if those 80 sales, 65 of them are still customers at the end of the month? Is your business better or worse? It's a hell of a lot better, right? So you have to know, you have to have a metric that said, in the metric, and let's not call it, let's make it easier and not call it happy customers. Let's call it, I don't know, customers, right? Like, because you really don't, actually the way I would distinguish this is I would call people who buy buyers, and people who are there after day 61 customers, right? They've lasted. They're your customers. And that's the metric I care about. And yes, I love not all the other stuff. I love most of the other stuff. I love things about like how engaged is the audience with communication. Do people like you show up on call? Like all of that, that all matters. But what doesn't matter as much to me is I'm less concerned about consumption metrics, and I'm way less concerned. I'm gonna sound like such an ass. That's all right. This is all about honesty. We're all friends here. I'm also less concerned about execution metrics. What? All of a sudden my street cred's gone. But let me tell you why. First of all, people buy things. We teach this. People buy things for any number of reasons. I buy tons of stuff I don't do anything with, and I'm still glad I bought it. Sometimes people buy our stuff because they're buying hope. They bought this thing that they hope someday is going to turn everything around for them, and they never act on it, but they feel good because they've got that hope. If buying something that we sell makes somebody feel good, but I don't like the way it makes them feel good, who the hell am I to say they can't feel good about it? Bullshit. Not my job, their job. So someone walks in today, never heard of us, but says, these guys look great. I want to be an internet marketing, whatever. I want to build my business. I'm going to do this thing. Hell yeah, here's $1,500. And they never log in, but every time they think about it, they feel good about it. Like, oh yeah, next month I'm going to hit that hard. I bought that. I'm going to nail that. I'm going to get that next month. It's not up to me to pass judgment, right? You do you, I'll do me. And on the consumption metric side, the where I get wound too is our job, I think, is to be in 100% integrity to say, from our experience, we're 40 plus years, we're 43 years between the two of us, and we think really deeply about this stuff. It is our job to put out the best possible explanation of what we believe works and why, and to constantly test that, and to constantly smash it up against situations and constantly refine it. And the customer's job is to figure out how to get the most from that. And getting back to Amanda's comment about meritocracy, I think I have a real strong meritocracy like component of my DNA, that I am not going to hold your hand and walk you through everything and answer. I'm not doing that. because now that doesn't mean I don't want to engage with you. I do, because I love it. But I'm not going to hold your hand and say, okay, little Johnny, I'm sorry if anyone's named John on this call. Okay, little Johnny, it seems like you're struggling to get through this stuff because, parentheses, you're not really taking the time to do it. But let me take you by the hand and make sure you're happy. Bullshit. Do the work. And when you do the work, come, like, raise your hand. It's like, all right, I don't understand what you meant here. I'm trying to do this thing and it doesn't make sense. Okay, then it's my job to make it make sense to you. But I'm not in the, it sounds like, and I'm making this more extreme because Andre and I are really not that far apart in this, but I'm trying to make our differences like broader. That I don't, all the things about, do you go through, like, do they go through it, and do they do the work? Do they get a result? Do they solve their problem? That's on them. That's on the customer. From my perspective, because we all have our jobs to do. And the reality from my perspective is the easier I make it for somebody, the lower, the less satisfying the outcome will be, I think. And maybe I'm wrong, and I'm just seeing it through the lens of my own experience. But it certainly has, there's a martial arts component of this too in my experience, where students who just progress through the ranks easily tend to be far less satisfied than the students who work at it, who get pushed, who struggle and feel like they accomplish things. And maybe that's the wrong metaphor. But I think there's something to that, where I want the people who do the work to rise up in their actions. And those are the people who, when they raise their hand and say, could you help me with this? It's hell yes, I want to help you with it, because I see you're doing something and I want to help you do that because you're my people, right? You're doing it. But and at the same time, the person who buys the course and dabbles but feels good about it and is excited about it, they tell you it's positive. That to me is a happy customer. Like they get to decide what makes them happy. So to summarize around this, I do think you have to have a metric, because if you don't, you have to have a metric that's actionable. And from my perspective, that's buyer and customer, with no emotional judgment around whether or not they're happy, because shit, I don't know day to day if I'm happy. I don't even know day to day if I care. I don't even, who knows? Like, happy is usually a retroactive thing. But where I think Andre and I are 100% in line is that we use happy customer as a frame for every decision that we make. For example, we initially intended to, anyone who had 3 or more of our core courses, we initially intended to just upgrade them automatically to the system, right? And we charged a nominal fee, $95, not because we wanted to make the $95, but because that actually filtered out about 70% of the people who didn't even bother to raise their hand. Right? It made a segment of our audience have to do something to take a step closer to us, because we believe that's likely to make a happier customer. That at the end of the day, not getting it for free, having to actually do just something made the difference. And we use this all the time in our thinking. So separate the idea of, I guess, 3 ideas. 1, happy customer is a framing tool. Like that's one definition of happy customer. Happy customer as a metric, which is buyer versus customer after 60 days or 30 days. And then this third component is, it's a term I heard from Andrew Huberman the other day, I love, which is anecdata. Meaning it's anecdotes that you're sort of mistaking for data. That anecdata are things like, we send out an email, we get a bunch of replies. They're not statistically significant, but they're important. Or we do a call like this, we get a certain number of participants, not statistically significant, but important, right? They inform our decision-making in sort of a texture way. They help us know what resonates, what doesn't, where we're getting it right and where we're not. But we're not fooling ourselves into thinking they're metrics. But we're also not saying it's too complicated to have a metric, because you need the metric between buyer and customer because that informs better decision-making. Okay, that was fun. Damn, that was a great question. All right. How's your energy doing? You all right? You're quiet over there. You're like, I'm going to punch him in the face later. Bullshit. No, I can tell.
Good. I think we're gonna go over 2 hours, I think.
Let's see, we have how many questions left? We're so dumb. Oh my God. Okay, let's see here. From Michael, I love the Robert Fritz recommendations. There's a lot there to get my teeth into. It also speaks to world building. I love similar mindset recommendations, as in what are foundational ideas from you both. Also reading Will It Make the Boat Go Faster, and how much I do both and don't do this. Need to rethink based on that. Oh, this is how do you want to tackle that? You want to, yeah, let's limit ourselves, because we could talk about this for 10 hours, which we may anyway. Let's say, let's each make one recommendation. One, you get to make only one recommendation. I only get to make one. That'll make it harder for us. So what one, I have no idea what I'm going to answer for this either. What one similar recommendation, foundational to like Fritz, to Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? What is, you can't use positioning because you just wrote an entire email about that. So one thing, and it can't be the one thing because you already said that too. So one book, one idea, one resource. Take your time because I need to think about mine.
So this is one of the things that I really care about as a concept, is this idea, which is, which Michael mentioned, is world building. So I've been thinking about this concept of world building. It's had different names before, for many, for, I don't know, maybe a decade and a half, maybe longer, I don't know. But it's always getting clearer, but it's always this abstract thing. And I'm trying to understand it more as it relates to the stuff we do. And whenever I come across a resource that just gives me an extra frame, this extra thing to think about that I can bolt on to my understanding of what world building means, that lights me up. So the resource that I'm going to share first, this is going to come across weird, but I've not read it yet. However, this last weekend, I interacted with either 3 or 4 interviews, video interviews with the authors. One has since passed away, and then another interview of somebody unpacking their takeaways from the book. There's a component in the book that I know that in that moment, so although I've not read it yet, I know it's in there because one of the authors mentioned it. And in that moment, it just stuck with me. That is another component of world building that I want to understand. And it's inside of this book, but I can't elaborate on it more than that because I've not read the book. Sean has, but I think Sean may have not noticed this component because he was actually after another component that matters to him, which is craft. So the book is all things shining. Damn, I've forgotten the 2 authors. Yeah, I'll have to. My PKM's closed at the moment, so just go to Amazon and type in all things shining. So that would be a book that's worth reading if you want to go deeper into world building. So that's my one resource.
I can't help but think you chose that because you thought I might suggest that book, and you're like, I got an idea. You don't like happy customers? I like apples. Let's try this. The things I put up with. I'll come at it a little, and that's an amazing book. Absolutely amazing book. Read it. It's hard as hell to get through the first however many chapters. It's just a battle, but the payoff is so worth it in the final chapter that it's good. It's outstanding. So read it. All right. I think I'll come at this a different way, which is, we've written about this a little bit, but it's really foundational to a lot of the successes I've had, broadly defined, which is, it's an idea from Charlie Munger about the importance of avoiding mistakes versus trying to be innovative or smart. So I'll be crystal clear. I was never innovative when I ran an agency, especially on the traffic side of things. Um, Nothing I did was like cutting edge at all. The thing that made me so successful, and I didn't know it at the time, it wasn't until I think MFA Live, maybe I mentioned it on stage, and I realized, like, I heard myself say it. I was like, oh yeah, that was it. But what made me very successful on my clients' behalf was that there are 10, 15 or so at the time. I had a list of 12 very specific mistakes that people made, primarily, when I was talking about this in the past, it was primarily around Google Ads. There were 12 mistakes that were very common. And I wasn't innovative, but my clients just didn't make those 12 mistakes. And if you don't make those mistakes, and there's a great metaphor for this, which is you can't out-exercise a box of donuts. Meaning you can be the most jacked CrossFitter in the world. Go to I won't call it a gym because I know your CrossFitters call it the box. Go to the box like 5 days a week, smash it with your high intensity workouts, high five each other. Yeah, bro, smash it, smash it, smash it. And after every time you go to the CrossFit box, you eat a half dozen donuts. Guess what? You're not ever going to out exercise the mistake you're making with the donuts, right? So that's mistake avoidance. Charlie Munger, who's Warren Buffett's business partner, describes it. There's a book written in his honor about this one idea that summarized it perfectly, which is all I ever want to know is where I'm going to die, so I never go there, right? Like that's the brilliance of this idea. So, and it's partly comes from inversion, which is I think Jacoby is the person who's the idea. It's like, instead of trying to figure out how to do X, you try to figure out what would be involved in non-X, and then you never do that, right? So most people will come out and say like, oh, what 5 steps should we take to have the most effective business in 2022, right? And everyone comes up with ideas. Another way to do it is to say, hey, let's make a list of like all the things we could do that would really undermine our success this year, and take it serious. Like sit down, like, oh, we could have really crappy customer support. We could, whatever, like make the list and then just commit to never doing any of that, right? It sounds like it's the same thing, but it's not. And I don't know why it's not. There's something very different about mistake avoidance when you do it right, about inversion, when you do it right, that you get a result that you don't get the other way. I don't know if it's how our minds are situated. I don't know. I don't understand it, but there's something really weird when you sit down and ask yourself. It's like it's a weird permission. Like, I'm sure if I would love to do this in a conversation with Amanda. Like if I sat down and I was like, hey, Amanda, tell me all, like, minimum 10 things that I could do that would really screw up my Facebook advertising results. Like, and like really think about it, and ask me some questions and make my list and really refine it. I could probably make let's just assume that we come up with 10. I can make a list of 10 things that if I just didn't do those 10 things, I would probably be way ahead of my competitors who are likely doing some or all of those things, right? That's how inversion works. So I mean, you can go to Farnham Street, Shane Parrish's blog. He has some articles on lots of stuff on Charlie Munger. There's a great interview with a guy who wrote one of my favorite books, which is, his name is Peter Bevelin. There's a great interview with Peter Bevelin about this idea of mistake avoidance, because and Andre and I talked about this, I think, earlier this year at the end of last year, about it's not about trying to be smart, it's about trying to be less dumb. And it sounds like we're being humble, but we don't mean it. Like it's not humility, it's not false humility, it's just recognizing there's so much we don't know, and each day is an opportunity to be just a little bit less dumb about different things. That feels different. There's a different energy around that. Maybe that doesn't motivate you. Some people are far more motivated by the positive and they're moving towards something. And I tend to be more motivated away from like not wanting. Like, for me, I'm motivated by not wanting to be dumb. And I'm dumb in so many ways, and in so thoroughly dumb. And if you want to feel dumb, like really, in this side, like I don't want to be like, why would I want to feel dumb? Because there's no judgment in it, right? I don't. When I say I feel dumb, I don't feel bad about myself. I'm like, you're a jerk, Sean. No, I know their whole worlds. First of all, I'm not even aware of. So it's not only do I not know what I don't know, I don't even know that I don't know it. But if you want to feel as dumb as I do, go listen to Sam Harris. Listen to the audiobook, but it's Sam Harris's book, Making Sense. It's 22 hours of his podcast with some of the biggest thinkers around some of the most complicated topics. And it's just moment after moment of, oh my God, I don't even know what they're talking about. Like, I don't even know. And it's beautiful. It's just a wonderful experience. So that's tangential to the question that you asked, but it's that idea has really improved the quality of my life well beyond any measurement I could ever give it. It's just to ask myself in any situation, how could I get this really wrong? And just when I'm on my and this is personal, this is relationship stuff, this is professional, this is creative output, it's everything. But just to identify early, how could I get this really wrong? And then just keep that in mind. Don't do that. Because then if I don't do that, at least my results aren't going to be terrible. Right? I don't know. That would be my contribution. Okay, next one. Alexandros, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. In the spirit of happy customers, in the spirit of happy customers and no hard persuasion tactics, would you consider entirely removing the money back guarantee? Oh, this is going to be a fun one. This happens only in the digital world. You don't ask your money back if you don't like the yogurt you got from the supermarket, right? Oh, maybe. All right, Andre, what do you think? Because we've thought about this. Certainly the first time in our partnership that we ever referenced the money back guarantee was for the system. I don't believe we've ever mentioned that explicitly in the past. So I'm guessing that you didn't ever mention that in the past for a reason. So I'll let you. Why don't you take this, and then my answer to why I think we did this is very straightforward. So take it away.
Yeah, I mean, the guarantee is a guarantee, right? It's just relieving some unknown, because buying a $1,500 product or a $500 product is not the same as buying a yogurt for $1.50. That's different. So if there was no money back guarantees, I think it would certainly suppress. Now, that's not necessarily good or bad, because someone that really feels that based on what's already been shared, these guys are talking. They're talking my language. I'm going to get this thing, regardless of the money back guarantee. If it's even, because we don't mention them on our pages. We do occasionally inside of the emails, like in the last email, hey, don't forget you get a money back guarantee. But very few people have actually reached out to us because we haven't got the money back guarantee on the site anywhere, where there was, hey, just want to make sure, do you guys offer it? And then then we say yes. So, one of the experiments I wanted to run a few years ago was make the money back guarantee explicit. So I would have it front and center, but it would either be a 1-year one or an unlimited one. So I would explicitly say, this is an unlimited guarantee. If you need your money back in 5 years' time, I will refund you that money. I never got around to doing it. I don't know what would have happened, but we use ClickBank for our front end courses and Course Now, and they do enforce money back guarantee. That's something that you have to offer. So it's always on the table. And in fact, even if we didn't have a money back guarantee, so we're going to be using Stripe, or the plan is to use Stripe for our continuity when we get that online with Lab and Elite. So we don't have to offer a money back guarantee. And even if we never do, and it's never mentioned anywhere, we never mention it in the emails. If anybody ever came to us and say, hey, I would like my money back, we would give the money back. There would never be an issue, at least from our perspective. I think Sean thinks the same way. But yeah, I think that's me skirting around the question a bit.
Well, it's funny too, because I started to, as you were talking, I started to make my answer far more nuanced than it actually is. So I was like, I was listening to you and I was like, oh yeah, but the reality is when I thought about it from a decision-making perspective, it wasn't nearly as nuanced as I'm thinking about it now that we're being asked the question. So it would be dishonest to suggest it was this nuanced. But for me, it came down to something very simple. ClickBank is the platform on which we make sales. ClickBank the ClickBank has a 60-day money back guarantee thing. Like we can't deny anybody who requests a refund through ClickBank in 60 days. That's part of the deal of using their platform. So it seemed foolish to me that we don't just say that for a couple of reasons. One, we have to do it anyway, so we might as well say it. But two, I think and this is the part I don't remember specifically having this thought, so I may have, I want to think that I did. But I want it to be clear to people when they buy that if they come to us and they want a refund, that's perfectly cool. Like come to, like, it's almost like if we didn't say it, then it's kind of like, well, then they just go to ClickBank and like kind of like they don't want to say something. It's like, no, like if it doesn't work for you, if you buy it and it's not what you want, just let us know. Like it's cool, no worries. Like let us know, we'll take care of it. Like I wanted people to feel comfortable with that. And whether or not it's it's the question is framed, happy customers, no hard persuasion. Implicit in that is that there's a possibility that the money back guarantee falls under the category of hard persuasion tactics. Like that's implicit in this question. And I think the way I would answer that question, it's a quote I love from Zig Ziglar. I'm not a big student of Zig Ziglar, and I don't know enough about. I sort of know who he was and other things. But there's something Zig Ziglar said that many others, Jay Abraham and others, have really expanded on. But the original quote from Zig Ziglar is that if you believe your product or service can fulfill a true need, it's your moral obligation to sell it. Now that's like, I think about that a lot because we both embrace the strategy of preeminence, Jay Abraham's strategy of preeminence. And when you take it to its logical conclusion, its explicit logical conclusion as described by Jay Abraham, you have to, there's a part missing in the description that I think we've filled in, which is important, that I'll fill in, which is if you truly believe that you're not fooling yourself, but if you're putting your heart and soul into something and you believe and you have evidence to support that this truly works, it truly fulfills a need, it truly can change people's lives if they do their part, I do believe you have some responsibility for the people who should have it to have it. Now, where do we draw the line? And we don't love the hard persuasion stuff, but make no mistake, we still persuade. Right? We're not reading the books on persuasion. We're not using those tactics, but we write in ways that are pulling the right people toward that outcome. We're deliberately, because we believe what we've created changes lives. If we didn't, then all bets are off, right? Like then you cross into the unethical side of things, but then the ethics are around the crappy product, not how you sell it. Like it's not the selling, it's that everything's a system, right? It's the relationship. So if you have a really good product and you've got the right audience in front of that product and you pull out all the stops to sell it, is that okay? I feel pretty good about that. But if the product is crappy and the audience is wrong and those parts aren't synergistically lining up, then if you can't apply the same logic in the same statement. So I think I land on this of being, it's not persuasion in the service of the buyer's best interests is okay with me, but we feel it when it's off and we don't go there if it feels like too much. And the money back guarantee didn't feel like too much because we felt like more than anything, it was something we had to do that we were making people aware of that was available to them. And I wanted them to feel like if they did take the chance and go, you know what, this was not for me, that everything was okay. They could just let us know and no problem. Like it's not a big deal because it isn't. So long answer. Damn. Yeah, we're not going to end at 10 today, apparently, Andre.
Yeah.
Okay, we should probably try to go faster with some of these. We just have so much fun. Damn, I love these calls. All right, Robbie, what's your view on creating affiliate partnerships early on in a startup? Do you leverage any affiliate networks to drive traffic to your own systems? Why don't you answer that, and I will. You answer that, and I'll go into the next one after you're done answering it.
Yeah, we don't leverage affiliate networks. In fact, we've manually turned ourselves. So because we're on the ClickBank marketplace, well, we sell through ClickBank. They're our retailer, so they've got a huge marketplace where you can go and search for products. So if you're an affiliate looking for offers to promote, you can go to the ClickBank marketplace, do a search under a certain category, and all the things come up. It's got the conversion rates and all that stuff. And then most affiliates will then just sort by the top 3 products that make the most money, and off they go, and they just throw traffic at it. So for that reason, we're unavailable on that network because we don't want junk traffic. And I think you can build a business that can make a lot of money from shitty traffic from affiliate networks, and many people have got rich from that. It's, make no mistake, it's a full-time job, and there's elements of it being, gray, unethical, because it's just pimping bits. It's not about relationships. So I think that's our thinking about that. We would rather handpick audiences. So we'll reach out to certain people like Amanda Bond, for example. If her audience is a really good fit for our stuff, well, then we'll do a deal with Amanda, and that's win-win for both of us. And she endorses our stuff, and we all make money, and we get really good prospects coming in and really good customers coming in, and that's more meaningful for us. But I don't think you find that on, I'm generalizing here, but I don't think you can find that on affiliate networks unless your offer is very broad, like make money online broad, like click buttons and you're going to get rich tomorrow broad. Then you can go to the affiliate networks, and again, that's just a different game, and that's not the game we're in. So we don't. Yep.
Sorry, I'm typing away at answering Karma's question. Oh, all right. Let's just move on to the next one. Anything to contribute to that? How far into the durable business would you go after feeling like your idea isn't quite right? Are there any examples you can give of starting business ideas and taking them too far or stopping too early? I mean, it's data, right? I mean, it's mostly data. I mean, if you're killing yourself, I mean, why kill yourself to make something work that's not working? Right? So if you go in, you get a tepid response from an audience. I mean, first of all, you should never get there. Like you should know the whole reason to validate an offer in the first place is so that you don't go out into the marketplace with an offer that underperforms. So by the time the offer is made, the work should have been done for that offer to knock it out of the park. Because you should have heard from people that there's a real need. You should have data from responses to the way you formulated and frame things that suggest people are really interested. You should have had conversations, whether electronically, asynchronously, or synchronously, Zoom, Skype, something else, with people, and heard their language and heard the intensity of it, and really had a sense that they're on board. It's like all that should have happened, so that you shouldn't find yourself in a place where you're like, this just doesn't seem to be working. And most stuff's not going to work. Like, you're going to find that out early. But be clear, it's offers that don't work. It's not, and an offer is an expression of an idea. It's not the idea itself. Right? So it may be like you may have this idea that you want to do a one-on-one coaching XYZ, and it tanks because the market wants small group, right? Like, or the market wants DIY. It doesn't mean that the knowledge you have to share isn't desirable. It just means the expression of how you. Now, it may very well be the knowledge you have isn't, but you don't know that yet. What's that phrase? The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence, right? So if you don't have any data that says specifically that this isn't working, that you can't assume that it's not working. You have to go out and run the experiments. So yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, my perspective is that competition it validates ideas. So when you look around, so if you look at our little audience and offer in economics circle or framework, you know, that audience component. If Sean and I are going after the PKM space, so this is for Project X, for example. Well, we can look in any which way we look. There's people making money or selling stuff in the PKM space. So that audience component is ticked. We don't have to ever wonder. I wonder if this audience spends money. Well, they do. So the only other thing that's left is the offer component. Now it's as Sean said, it's an expression of an idea. Now that, you know, one's idea could be shit, and they normally are. You normally got to iterate towards a good idea, and also expressing that idea in a way that within that audience pool of people making money in that space is expressing that offer in a way that talks to a certain segment of people in a way that pulls them forward, that, you know, you become a little category of one, you know, all those things. That is the iteration in that offer box where you're trying to express an idea in a way. And so that's where you end up spending most of your time inside of the durable business, iterating there. You know, the audience is good. This isn't about, you know, in the old days, you know, what niche shall I go after? And really people's thinking behind that, they're, you know, implicit in that was, where can I make the money? Where can I make the money? It was less about building a business that they want to do long term. So, you know, if you went, you know, when Frank Kern did the whole, it's the underachiever thing, and you're going to build 50 little businesses, each making $1,000 a month in these obscure markets. Now that's different. That's, you know, if you're into hamster breeding secrets, well, maybe there's not enough people that are interested in buying hamster breeding secrets. So, you know, in those examples, you can get audience wrong all day long because there's always this unknown. But today on the internet, where there's competition everywhere you look, and that competition validates markets. That's a good thing. And so that audience box can be ticked off very quickly. But what's important, what we try to express inside of the durable business, is that audience component really better be something that you want to do and you can see yourself doing long term. It needs to light you up. It shouldn't be just a money-making venture. Money obviously is important, that economics, because, you know, hobbies are hobbies, and if you're not going to make any money from it and you want it to replace a day job, well, it better make money. So, but that audience thing, it really needs to be in something that you enjoy doing. So therefore, when you understand all of that, the only thing really, the like biggest thing that's an unknown early on is the offer component and an expression of that idea. And that's normal, but that's not starting again. That's not scrapping the entire thing. You know, this PKM thing is just rubbish. No one's, you know, because I can't make money in the PKM space does not mean people aren't making money in the PKM space, which they clearly are. So yeah, I think I'm going around in circles now, but I think that's how, yeah, you just iterate over there.
All right, next question is from Anonymous, aka Jason Bourne. Should I create a relationship building sequence and then a multi-page pre-sell before I do awareness stuff? What's the real way of doing stuff? All right, here's some tough love, Anonymous. Go to the durable business and go through that content, because it answers this question. There's no, and this is like, how long is a piece of string, right? I mean, we have no, like, we have no clue how to answer this question with such limited information. If you're at zero, then the answer is go to the durable business. That's always the answer. Go to the durable business, because you got a lot of work to do before you start thinking about building a relationship building sequence or a multi-page pre-sell, because who knows what it's about. Now, if you have an established business with an offer that converts and a long history of that converting, and you don't have a relationship building sequence and you don't have a multi-page pre-sale and you have boat tons of traffic, maybe that's a good idea. But without, we just can't answer this question. It's impossible. And it's think in terms of like, start with the context. I have X, then with X. Again, this is the central point of this masterclass, which is establish the parameters of what current reality is for you around your offer or offers, around your audience or audiences, the economics of what you're doing, and the experience of your business. Construct a similar or construct a future state using those same parameters. Understand the delta, the difference, the time frame and the difference between those two things. And that's going to tell you what work needs to be done. But without knowing what your A is, and the answers to those questions, we can't possibly tell you whether or not. And in this last question, this is a fascinating question. What is the real way of doing stuff? The real way of doing this stuff is exactly what we said in the masterclass. That's exactly how to do it. It's why we said it. It's why it's in the masterclass, right? Like, sit down and figure out the answers to those questions and figure out where you are right now. Then figure out where you want to go. Once you've done that, ask yourself if a relationship building sequence and a multi-page pre-sale are the priorities to get you there. That's how you answer this question. Sound like I'm being a jerk. I'm not meaning to be a jerk. I'm trying to, just a little tough love here. That's how you answer the question for yourself. That's the real way of doing this stuff. Andre, you want to add a kinder, gentler version to that, or are you okay with my bad cop version?
I love bad cop, yeah.
All right, move on to the next one. All right, this is from Paul. From your experience working with clients, has there been a shift in how the business community sees your model of marketing versus the more traditional direct response model? You hinted at this earlier. Do you want to take it from the perspective of some of the client work that we did?
Yeah. Again, I don't have a deep experience with clients, but one of them, which runs a really large publishing business that does very aggressive traditional direct response marketing. Things are changing, and they're changing in ways that certain companies aren't prepared for. So I think that was always going to happen. It was just when. So you can only be aggressive for really aggressive for so long, and then things just need to change if that's the business you're in. And some companies, this is neither right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just some certain business models. It's always whatever is at the edge of what I can get away with. They will build business models as far out as possible. And then there's other businesses in these same spaces that are very competitive, that will have a different version. So they will do a less aggressive version, and their businesses will be completely different, and how they interact with their customers will be completely different. It's just different ways of doing it. And I think maybe again, I can only generalize now, but perhaps there's more people coming around to our expression of modern marketing as we attempting to externalize inside of the system. I think I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, but I can't remember where we talked about this, but we have, which is the short answer is yes, because the economics of traffic changed so fundamentally that the conversion rates that used to work no longer work. So, back in the day, that when you could get 1 cent clicks on Google all day long, then you could have your business model could work when you have a lot of cheap traffic. But there really isn't any cheap traffic anymore. I mean, those days have kind of are gone. I mean, yeah, I mean, you can get less expensive traffic, but the 1 cent click days are over, and they're not coming back. So, and traffic costs have risen steadily over time. And to be clear, when I say traffic costs, these most people are paying. Most people pay for traffic at some stage, and most large businesses pay for essentially all of their traffic because it's predictable and it's dependable. So if you're getting a ton of organic traffic and you're like, what is he talking about? Traffic costs. Well, the game being played by most of the big players is you have to pay for traffic because you just need a lot of it. And when it's not cheap anymore, 1%, 0.5%, 0.25% conversion rates don't work. And that has had seismic repercussions throughout the internet marketing world, that as traffic becomes more expensive, you need much higher conversion rates just to break even, in much more sophisticated business models just to break even. And you have to change the economic window of your business over longer periods of time to compensate for the fact that most people don't buy initially. They buy later. They buy, beyond 90 days to 2 years. Like you have to take all of that, and really what our model of, if you want to think about our framework, how we think about digital marketing really is the thing that we do that I think we do better than most other people do. And it's not a humble brag or anything. It's just, I think it's an intellectually defensible statement, but that we understand, we're willing to talk about the unspoken realities that many others are either unaware of, like the implications of them, or they're aware of, but they don't want to explicitly talk about it. So things like traffic costs are going up. Conversion rates don't generally happen in the first 30 days. That most of them, these are all parts of reality. So when we look at all of reality and build methods that reflect that reality, like that makes sense, right? It's not, so a lot of, it doesn't mean that the other ways of doing direct response don't work or didn't work. It just means they're becoming harder and harder. And when you spend any time with the big direct response marketers, it's all the same story, which is it's getting harder and harder to get high quality traffic. There's more competition. People are yelling louder. The signal to noise ratio is dramatically in favor of noise. All of those things are true. And those truths are the implications of those truths are what inform what we teach in the system. And how we approach marketing is that we recognize the implications of what's true, and we create strategies that work with those realities, not fighting against them. I hope that answers the question. And yes, people are seeing this, absolutely seeing this. It's the biggest question or the biggest challenge that you'll hear when you get behind the scenes with any big direct response marketer or companies in general. Okay, Mark, I'm a web developer, web marketer looking to get into something different, something more scalable, maybe affiliate marketing or something e-commerce, but most important, scalable or easy to get others involved with outsourcing. What markets and what products or what niches do you suggest me to look into? Like leads in England? I have no idea. Mark, I think this is specific enough that I think I'm going to table this one, and what we're going to do is I'm going to drop it into a document, and that document is going to be, sorry, I'm just doing this as I'm saying it. I'm going to drop this into a document that I'm going to see if we can follow up with you. So please email support. Just let them know that you're the Mark who asked the question today, and then if we know somebody or can answer this intelligently, I don't think either of us is not going to answer that well. All right, next question, Andre. I'll hand this off to you first because I'm going to copy this over so that I have it. All right, here's the question. That says, Guillermo, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. When creating a multi-page pre-sale, what is the thought process that you go through during the creation? For example, do you first try to figure out what are the beliefs that the reader must have in order to move forward? Or do you focus first on the beliefs that they currently have that you feel you must deal with before doing anything else, like trying to install different or new beliefs? All right, Andre, I'll copy Mark's stuff over while you take a whack at that one.
Well, the short answer is, well, the more complete answer is obviously in the course. So I'm gonna suggest. Well, maybe I can't presume that you've been through sphere of influence. Otherwise, you may not be answering this question, asking this question in the same way. So, and again, I suppose over the years, my approach is different. It evolves. I think what's codified in sphere of influence as it is now is a good way for that's accessible for everyone. Do I follow that now to a T? No, and maybe we'll express that in a slightly different way when we update the course at some point. But I don't think me articulating my current, or me articulating a way of how I maybe think about this now will be helpful. It perhaps will be too confused. Well, it'll confuse the fact because it'll be slightly different to what's inside the course, articulated fairly well. Yeah, I want to skirt around the question. Maybe Sean wants to come at this from a different angle, but I don't want to confuse the matter here.
Yeah, I think we've answered this really well so Gareth Kemp asked a great question, essentially this question, but much deeper in sphere of influence. I've put the link in, I've put the link to the specific place in the Q&A where he asked the question. And Andre replied, and I replied, really in depth about how we think about exactly this question. So I think the best thing to do, everybody, if you're interested in this question, go read the response, because we really got into the, how do we go through this process, like the thinking process. So it's there, and you'll find. I think that's the best answer we can give.
Yeah.
All right. I've copied Mark's stuff. Guillermo's we've done. All right. Maya, I hope I pronounced that correctly. To piggyback, I've been a follower for years, but I'm shit scared to get started. As a privacy nut, I hate the idea of putting my face and my identity out in the public. So how do I kickstart and get my butt into action? You don't have to be the face of your business. Yeah. And I mean, you can be. You can create you could also. There are a million ways you can think about this. You can sort of take the Todd Herman alter ego approach, right? I mean, Todd's written extensively about that. He has a book, he has a course, he writes a ton about it, a ton of interviews. You don't need to buy anything. Go listen to one of his interviews that he talks about it. And you can create for yourself an alter ego who's your public face. It might be your actual. I wouldn't. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that you make a fake persona, like here's a picture of a person who's not really you. And you could, I suppose. I would rather, if you really don't want your face to be there, don't put your face out there, or put something like have an illustrator draw a representation that may or may not be exactly you. I mean, there's ways to do that, so you're not having to put you specifically out there, because I understand privacy. And getting your identity out there. Where it gets a little fuzzy is when you're from our perspective, it's all about integrity. So integrity doesn't mean it has to be the most accurate physical representation of you. It doesn't mean that you have to share with people where you live and all. That's not what integrity means. But it does mean that if you're providing value in a certain space, you need to be honest about your experience with that. So you do have to put yourself out there a little bit. But I think you can mitigate a lot of the concerns that you have by not making it literally your face and making it literally about you. That the profile can be a representation. I think you'll see Tim Ferriss does this in his podcast, the last bunch of them, where it's not a photo of the person. Well, yes, he's doing a YouTube. I think you can see the person, but on his website, the representation, it's hand drawn. It's an illustration of the person. You could do something like that. You could do some sort of symbol around it. You could also feed that into the idea. Like you could have it be I don't know what space you're in, but you can have a little bit of mystique around it, that it's, in the past there was person X or whatever. There's lots of ways you can do this, but you don't have to be. Okay, so you're saying, to clarify, you're a marketer, you're very much there in person for your clients. They know me. You have a LinkedIn profile, but everyone says personal branding. I have zero interest. Oh, I hear you. Preach. I hate that shit too. Yeah, I mean, we don't splat. I mean, I think we might have, you can see us like on the site, our mug shots, same things you see on the screen here. But you don't have to, like, this is the myth of the internet, like, that you have to do everything. Andre and I aren't on Twitter. We don't, there are whole things, we're not whatever it was last summer that everyone thought was going to be the change the world, the audio thing, whatever, I can't remember what it's called now. It's like, it's going to be the greatest thing. It seemed dumb as hell to me. I had no interest in it. And now everyone's like, why did we ever do that? Who wanted to wander around on audio? Like, you don't have, everything you do online is a choice, right? Like, you don't have to be on Facebook. You don't have to do anything. Like, find the places where they make sense, where your audience gathers, and be there in a way that represents the value that you're able to provide. That's it. That's the alpha and the omega of that. You don't have to have some, and this is, I hate, like, how many times have you seen the marketers with their Facebook profile is like, it's all marketing, and it's like, stop doing that. Like, don't do that. Your friends don't care about that. Anyway, Andre, you probably have far more coherent thoughts on this than I do.
Yeah, I don't think you need to worry about images. If you're comfortable with them, have them. There's so many people on Twitter, for example, that use like weird images to represent them, and nobody thinks that's weird, other than Sean. So if type in Sam Harris with his huge, big, millions and millions of followers, he's got an NFT representation of his head, like a weird looking thing. Nobody thinks that's weird. Maybe Sean does. And then there's, like Sean said, there's various illustrations you can use that represents. There's so many tools online. You just stick your photograph inside there and it spits out the illustrated version of it. Just use that. And you're off to the races.
Easy enough, right? All right, let's go to Neer's question. All right. Help with my first offer for validation. I have an offer I want to validate. Is about building website plus companion online course, how to manage and use it for marketing. As to use the website for marketing and converting people into leads. I have insecurity about the offer. Guess what, Neer? We all have insecurity about our offers. Welcome to the club. Question: do you know such offers online so I can see my competitors? There's a very short answer to this. The offer that you're describing, building sites and showing people how to manage them. I mean, yes, that offer can work. It's been pre-validated by, I don't know, rounded up to a whole number, somewhere around 1 million other people. So your offer is fine. And for you, I think the thing that's getting in your way is you need to connect that idea with an audience. So he said, for some reason, I can't find any other people doing this kind of offer or process for an audience with a need for a website that helps with branding and marketing, but also with a course to level up the managing part of the website and other things connected to it. And Neer's in Israel, but you may need to go international. So let's unpack this last part. When people, you really have kind of two lanes here. So what you're really trying to find, the lane is a lot of companies want a website for branding and marketing. And there are people who want to know how to manage their websites. Those are not always the same people, and often they're not. So what you need to find is that overlap between needs a website. Like, if you think it's like a two-part Venn diagram, there are an enormous number of people that need branding and marketing website. And then there's an enormous number of people who want to learn how to update websites. But the overlap is a much smaller sliver of people who need both. And that's the part that you have to validate. Like, how do you find, because it's really, and be cautious with it, because you're moving down the levels of economic possibility, frankly, that you're going to be finding people who that money is a concern. When money is not a concern, you pay somebody else to build your website and to manage it. When money is a factor in decision making, then you learn how you pay somebody. You're sort of like not mid tier. You're like not quite at the bottom, but you're creating I think if I'm understanding your offer correctly, you're going to build the site and you have a companion course on how to manage and use it. So you have to find that exact sliver, and you may find that sliver is it may be a little, this is an uphill climb, right? I think I assume that you have already validated that people will pay you to build their website. The part that, and I think maybe I'm just thinking out loud here, so give me some latitude. I think the part that you need to, I think you're making two things together that maybe are better separate, right? So this is the antithesis of the Reese's peanut butter cup, where chocolate and peanut butter are great together. I think you want to sell the companion online course. If my memory is correct from previous conversations, you're a WordPress developer. So I think you want to actually validate the getting the most from your WordPress site online course and market that to, because then you have a much larger audience. Sell that to people who already have a website and they want to get more out of it and they want to do that work themselves. Because if you don't do that, it's really hard to understand which part of your business is that needs your attention. Because if you can have people who they don't want to build a website right now, they want to work on their own website. So you're not attractive to them because your course is about both. And so when you separate them, when you pull, especially the second part, when you pull the course out of the mix and people can do the website and the companion course, or if they already have a website, they can learn how to get the most from it. You get a much larger audience and a much truer signal to validate the offer. So that's how I would think about it. Now you've added some notes here. Andre will jump into this while I read some of the notes that you've added over here.
Yeah, so let me come at this in a few ways. I mean, it is competitive, right? As soon as you talk about websites, you certainly can't. I think it's difficult to advertise because all the big brands, all the big guys are going to be ranking for anything to do with websites or website themes. It's just a never-ending pit of deep competitive. But so I think that's the bad news, but there's always good news. There's always a way to find opportunities in competitive spaces. And again, as I said earlier on, competition validates the market. It does make it difficult sometimes and challenging to find those opportunities. So I'll express one way to do this from our buddy Dean Jackson. I think I haven't come across anybody who has solved this particular issue or solution. He's made this work in a way that is so unique and it just works so well. And so I'll give you the 10,000 foot view as he's explained in some of his podcasts. I mean, just go to ilovemarketing.com. He's got a podcast show there with Joe Polish, and it's on one of those. It's on one of those. But anyway, he unpacks how he does this. So Dean Jackson, really broadly, he started off in the real estate. I think it's the real estate space. So he has this pool of clients, of customers. So he has an audience already. And one of the things that he solved is this website thing, much like you've explained. So what Dean does is he created an entire little turnkey website for his clients. So they get everything. They get all the assets. They get the ability to plug this thing in and it'll generate leads. They just need to fill in like their details. It's not necessarily a template thing, but I'm sure I've never seen it myself, but as he explains it, it sounds like there's a template component to it. You just create it, you just edit it so it fits your business, but it's essentially you're in the retail leads business. And he gives you this thing for free. I think it's for free. And it's yours. You plug it in and you drive traffic to it, and it generates leads. Those are your leads. But I think it's like maybe after 60 days or after 90 days, whatever it is, or when the first lead comes in, it starts. It's one of the two. I forget the nuances. But then he charges them. The only cost to them is the $99 a month. And again, I might have the number wrong, but I seem to remember $99 a month. So he's got a continuity product that he's created out of thin air from giving people. So he's done all the work to build this asset, to test it. He knows it works. And then he's just selling this thing over and over again to all his real estate clients. And he's got and this is just one component of his business, which is, I think it's substantial. I don't know if it's thousands of customers all paying him $99 a month, but that's amazing. When I first heard that a few years ago, I thought, God damn, that's good. So anyway, that's how he solved the problem in a very, really competitive space.
All right, damn, we're up on 3 hours. We got to smash through a few more of these. Let me just nail this one. I'm going to give you a second to recover. I'm going to skip one and then answer a quick one. That's just me. I can answer it. And I have anything else that's like this? No. All right. So I'll just give you a quick break. So someone asked later, will there be an update to the traffic engine? Yes, the traffic engine this year is going to get a pretty comprehensive update. Unfortunately, Facebook and Google won't stand still and do things the way they've done in the past. So it needs, I don't know exactly. I mean, there's some things some obvious inline stuff that needs to change. Unfortunately, the traffic engine it's built on paid traffic principles, and the whole thing is built on principles. So it's really the tactical stuff that changes. But just because I'm never satisfied with anything, I want to kind of go back and there are parts of it I just want to reimagine. It's that conversation before about simplicity to complexity to simplicity. Like, I think there are some simpler ways through it, but I sense that they're there, but I just haven't sat down with that yet. The traffic engine is going to get part of what's going to inform that is, when we're doing the front end and all the traffic campaigns for the business. That's April, May-ish, May, June-ish. As that's happening, I know there's going to be a lot that I'll be thinking about that I want to put in the traffic engine. And I don't know where or what or the extent of it. So the short answer is yes. The longer answer is yeah, a lot. I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to compromise the elegant simplicity of what I was going for in the traffic engine, but I also I want it to be fresh and to better reflect the current reality. So that's the shortish answer. Okay. Wow, we're jamming. Matthew said, I think you've partially answered my question already, and the client needs to feel a sense of the A to B tension that draws from the level of work. So this was related to the previous one. I think we nailed that answer. So I'm going to call that done. I don't know that I understand this one. So maybe when you hear it, Andre, you'll understand what he's talking about. Maybe I may just be getting dumber. But the question is, have you ever used or seen someone use outbound prospecting in conjunction with a multi-page pre-sell and email autoresponder? I don't even know what we're talking about here. I have no idea how it relates to this masterclass. So I'll let you answer that one or decide not to.
Yeah, I don't know what's meant by outbound prospecting. Maybe it's when you just cold calling certain people to see if they want it. So you've got a coaching program and you're just going to cold call based on search criteria, just go find businesses that feel that, and then you just cold hit them up. So maybe it's that. And when they respond to the email, you send them to a little MPPS. Maybe, I don't know, but I've certainly never cold called anyone. So I'm not a.
Yeah, he's added, or he or she has added some info in the chat. Cold message prospecting, cold message people to generate traffic. We're not in the cold message business, so
Yeah.
that would be. I mean, you could, right? I mean, you could. There's no reason you couldn't. It could be a source of traffic, so there's no judgment on it. It's just, I mean, if you're reaching out, let's say you're part of a sales team, you're reaching out to people, and when someone does indicate interest, there's absolutely no reason you couldn't send them to a multi-page pre-sale following every principle that we teach, and at the end of that, have them sign up for a series in line. As long as they're you've got a quality prospect, and outbound prospecting, the way you're describing it, is certainly it's not. You're not necessarily going to get a lower quality prospect. I mean, it's expensive. It's expensive in time and other things. But if you're doing it, there's no reason why any source of traffic that is the right audience. So when you're doing outbound and you're talking to people, that you're getting the right audience, any way that you get the right audience, everything that follows is a downstream consequence of getting that right audience. So I wouldn't promise the world, with outbound, this is going to be the greatest thing. I'm going to promise you this, 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 and this. Now go here, and then you start world building. So they have to meet up in some way. But yeah, absolutely. There's no reason you couldn't do that. Okay, so this next question, Christian, I think I copied this question, and I'm going to get email Nick in support or Jen in support, and just mention that you're the person who asked this question on in the email, because I wanted, and I tried to find it, I couldn't find it. I wanted to send you the link to our conversation with Jonathan Boyd about, I believe he has a beautiful minimum viable expression of a sphere of influence inspired front end. At the time, it was like 1,600 words. I mean, we talked about it in depth. That's the thing to really listen to. I just can't find the URL for it. I just searched briefly. So reach out to us and we'll, or to support.
I've just put it in the chat.
No, even better. See, this is what happens when somebody knows what they're doing. Excellent. Don't reach out to chat or to support. We already took care of it. Andre did. All right. Next one. Leanne, if we were optimized, we're in happy customer territory again. Someone just wanted to see what would happen. If we're optimizing for happy customers, what are the indicators that we are on the right path in the short term, other than spontaneous positive feedback when we are playing the long game? So short-term indicators for the long-term game of happy customers. What are the indicators? This is your jam, and you love this stuff. So how do you think about it? Like the short-term stuff, like what's defined short-term? So let's say first 30 days. So nothing to do with refunds or any of that stuff, because who knows, but it's what happens in the first 30 days after we get a customer that there's so much to do here that we could talk about. But I'm thinking in terms of things like, if you have a community, do they go in, do they introduce themselves? Are they like involved? Do they reply back to things like your receipt telling you how excited they are, which happens to us a lot. Not the receipt, but the welcome email. Are they like those are the big ones. I mean, people sort of declare their intentions often right after they do a thing. We see those a lot. I don't know. How do you think about this?
Yeah. Another metric you can look at is, so you should always have a customer onboarding series. So if somebody makes a purchase, they get a customer series that's triggered straight away. Well, the open rates, regardless of the fact that Apple is blocking some of those metrics, it should be ridiculously high. It should be higher than any other open rate you have in your system, certainly on the prospect end. It should perhaps be, it should be, I'll go out on a limb and say certainly 80% plus. And, if it's in the 90s, well done. I think that's maintained. It's maintained for some period of time. If your sequence is a week long, well, on email number 7, it shouldn't be 30%. Like it shouldn't go 90, 70, 40, and then 10. That's something's clearly gone sideways there, even if you don't get any refunds. So if you just smashing those 90s, 85% open rates, I think that's a good sign, and that's easy to see. And then the other things that Sean mentioned, if you have a community and things like that.
All right, let's jump to the next one. I have a few popular services that can be executed a la carte, but after hiring me for one thing, a client may see me as a one-stop shop. Would you suggest thinking about the experience for each individual service, or thinking about the experience from the point of them hiring me for all the services I offer? That's actually a question that you have to ask yourself, because ultimately, what do you want? What do you want the customers to do? Because what you want customers to do should be that should be your guiding principle for, will it make the boat go faster? In that case, I'm just going to make an assumption. Let's assume that what you really want is a full service client that pays you lots of money, loves everything you do for them. They're easy to work with. They appreciate you, and they don't churn, right? Like, that's the perfect customer. Well, if that's the definition of success for your business, throughput for your business is the rate at which you produce those customers. That's what tells you if you're making the boat go faster or not. So if you add 10 customers in a month for individual things, is your boat going any faster? No, because you've just added individuals. Now you might say, well, half of the time when people buy one thing, they upgrade to, they do all of it within 30 days. Okay, so then you at least have some nuance. You're like, well, I don't know if it's just making them, well, you could kind of say, yeah, it's contributing to making the boat go faster. I don't know which 50% will upgrade, but I do know consistently 50% will. Okay, yeah, that activity is making the boat go faster. But the way to answer this question for yourself is to say, what do you want to be true, and subordinate all decision-making in your business to making that true. That's the game. Like whoever anonymous earlier asked, like the real way to do things. The real way to do things is to figure out what you're trying to accomplish for you and your customers, and subordinate all decision-making to that. That's the game. That's the whole game that we're playing, and you get to make the rules of this game. So if perfect customer for you is someone who hires you for everything, every decision you make should be to make that happen. And if the thing that you're doing doesn't make that happen, then you don't do it, period. That's the implementation of, will it make the boat go faster in action. That's the thinking. That at the core, that's the thinking. Anything you want to throw at that, Andre?
No, just the same, other than just draw attention, I suppose, to, if you're specializing, you can really become world-class at the one thing. We have, Sean and I have a mutual friend, Sue, and all she does is email. That's her thing. She's been doing it for a million years. And, if you want an email sequence written, she's the email agency girl. So I say that only that, and I'm guessing I've never run a full service agency, but I can just imagine there's implications involved that it's got to be very time consuming. There's a huge amount of opportunity cost for just servicing one client that want all these different things. You certainly, if it's a one-man band, you can't take on any more clients for a while, unless it's a proper agency with employees all doing different things. Then you're in I don't know, I'm just riffing now, but worth mentioning that, I suppose.
It's the classic, David Epstein's range versus everybody who says be a specialist. Like, and some of it comes down to that fourth metric that we didn't talk about as much in the masterclass as I wish we had around experience. Like, you may, if some of the work that you do you love more than others, that may be the definition of the boat going faster for you. Like, you may offer a bunch of things because that bunch of things attracts clients, but then over time you realize one of the things that you offer is the thing that lights you up most. And then you pare away, you make that the new destination, and you like that becomes the goal from which everything else is subordinated. So lots of ways, but it all comes down to that same knowing what you are trying to accomplish and making every decision subordinate to that. All right, we're getting close-ish, I hope.
I can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's not the light, it's the train. That's the oncoming train.
Gosh.
All right, Robbie, I'm asking this question because it sounds like you're both about to pour a ton of energy into this, and I can understand your reasoning. It might help to apply this to my own ideas. What makes building and running TLB Lab and Lab Elite so right for you both as people? Oh, what a hell of a question. What makes building and running Lab and Elite so right for both of you as people and as marketers? What's changed for you? What's changed that you're offering this now after you've done agency and TLB work for 20 years? What are you hoping to get out of it? We could probably do an entire masterclass just on that question. You want to answer this first, or you want me to answer it first? I'll give you the choice. I'm such a nice guy.
Well, I think we're at a stage here where the plan is to optimize for experiences that light us up. We're fortunate and privileged enough to be able to do this work that we enjoy, and we get to construct parts of that business. It's like, what else can we do that's really going to light us up and increase that feeling of that experience? And I think this is Lab and Elite is part of that. There's some things we want to do with Lab that, although we haven't started doing it yet, on paper it just sounds so exciting. And Sean will. I mean, he's probably vibrating right now, so I'll leave him to riff about that one. And then Elite is just it's a wonderful opportunity to interact more closely with people that are willing to do the work, put it in their business, get results, and then spin the wheel and do it again. And I think it's going to be fun to do that. Again, this comes down to fun. And if at any point along that journey, either one of those or anything else we do stops being fun and that experience becomes miserable, we'll stop doing it. But the reason why we're engineering these little things is because we think they're going to be fun for us. So that's our selfish reason. But on the other end of that is we think it's going to be a huge amount of fun and and profitable and all those cool things for our people. So this is another level of what can we do that makes the boat go faster? What can we do to make happy customers? Well, both of these things tick the box, and it's just the timing seems to be right now. That's what I'll say about it. I'll let Sean unmute himself because he's vibrating right now.
I'm so brain dead. I'm not sure. So, I think Lab for me comes out of this, like, we have so much fun. When I say we, Andre and I, we have so much fun doing what we do, and the spaces between, right? It's the space between the courses and the twice a week we're talking about stuff and we're chatting a lot, and we just, there's so much of that that's so fun that it seems terrible not to share that, right? That's part of it. There's another part of it that in tomorrow's newsletter we'll speak to this a little bit more. We're different people in oddly different ways too, because our roles reverse. I don't want to give away too much about tomorrow's newsletter, but there's a dynamism in like these Q&A calls, and there's a dynamism in this emergent thinking. And I'll leave this call today with 50 ideas. Like, my brain will be on fire from the interaction with everybody, and like that it feeds the soul, right? So this Lab is a way to do this thing that really that drives a part of our interest and personalities, and it delivers value that we're already creating that has an audience of 2 that should have an audience much larger than that. So like Lab from that perspective, there's so many reasons to do it, and the whole idea just lights me up. I just love it. I love this dynamic interaction. I love that engagement. Elite's different because we've both been involved in groups, high performance, low performance, awful, like whatever. I'll speak from my perspective. I love this work. I love being around people doing this work. I love hearing the challenges people who do this work are having.
again, it gets back to the meritocracy stuff from before. Like when someone's out there on like hammering away every day and doing it, and I want to hang out with those people. I want to share whatever I've learned over the years, to help move them forward and to make myself better in the process too. Like I want to play that game with the people who are playing the game and be out there with them on the field and doing that, to continue the sports metaphor here. So, but the latter question, like, why now after 20 years? Well, from my perspective, you need to. I don't like the people who learned something last month and they're selling their system for it on Facebook tomorrow. That pisses me off. There's no integrity there. We've done the work, right? So now it's kind of, for me, part of my thinking is, first of all, we have a responsibility for people who are doing the work, and we have responsibility for people coming next to share our body of wisdom. We have all humility. We have a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience, and it's fun to share that with other people, and it's fun to get better at it, because I expect to do this for another 20 years. So it's like all of that gets wrapped together. And I'm so ridiculously excited about all of it, and the way all of it fits together, because the business is not going to be these sort of three separate things or four separate things where it's like we have a core offer, which is the system, 5 things. We have a community where people sort of interact related to that. Then we have lab, which is the space between. Then we have elite, which are people really on the front lines doing the work, who want us to be there with them and their peers to be there with them, moving their business forward with goals and accountability. And then we have a front end off. It's not all those parts. It's the thing that emerges from the interaction of all of those things that just lights me up. I am vibrating. So you're right. Damn it. You were right. All right. Let's see here. This is Yvonne. I know you're not lawyers. Well,
Yes,
not
yes, we
doctors
are.
either. But, we're not doctors either, but we always pretend to be. I know you're not lawyers and cannot give legal advice, but what should I make sure to have on my first website, and where can I get it to cover the legal aspects? Maybe a source of legal forms. I would recommend, Yvonne, that you go to Google and search for that, because I don't think either of us would be a good source of information for that. I think, because you can find great templates for things like GDPR. You can find great templates for terms of service, privacy policies. Like all of that is out there. And if you do a search for it, I'm confident you'll find all of that.
Well, it's worth adding one thing, I think. Just go to AppSumo, so appsumo.com. You click on the browse tab and then just search for legal forms. There's some legitimate proper companies who are lawyers and they sell their templates, but they've got service. It's a real service, and AppSumo just does amazing deals. So you can normally, if the timing's right, you can pick one of those things up at a price that's worth it for you, and then you've got all your legal forms over there. So try that.
All right, I'm just trying to copy a note here from Jason. Offered to talk with us about this. Sorry. Apparently I can't do 2 things at once, so who knew? All right, next. Oh, we're so close. We're so close. Let me do this because I can't seem to multitask. All right, 2 questions left. This is like not a record though, but damn, yikes. All right. Jason, I have a basic start to my business. I sell marketing and operations strategy and implementation, focusing on linking the 2 together into a strong system. Hey, there's only 1 question. That's the
nice.
Oops, didn't know. Return key. Yeah, I've already sold 2 clients, so it's been proven. I'm trying to figure out what to start building. My question is, where do you think I could start with my marketing? I started doing Momentum Builder workshop to form a basic traffic sphere of influence email model. You think I should start with 1 section first? This is an interesting question. I mean, you've got 2 clients, so this sounds like an absolutely ridiculous answer to your question, but it's not. It's meant to be a very elegant answer to your question, which is what you did to get those clients repeatable? And it's a risk of sounding idiotic, because 4 or 6 clients are better than 2. As a friend of mine would say, 6 is bigger, right? So The reason I mention this is, and maybe now if you have two clients paying you 10 grand a piece, that's different. But the reason I'm asking is, if something worked, don't reinvent the wheel. Right? The last thing we want to do is be in a wheel reinvention business. So what I would say first, okay, so there's added some things. I didn't do it digitally. I sat down with them and then told them that raw manifest. Who cares? You still got the result. This is a beautiful question. I'm so psyched you asked this, Jason, because I've heard variations of this so many times in different ways. Let's get back to our model here, which is, will it make the boat go faster? High ticket. So Jason's adding stuff here. High ticket, 30,000. He closed 2 clients by sitting down with them and sort of walked him through. He says this raw manifesto when they hired him. Do that again, right? Like don't. Now, if for some reason that was a fluke, right? And if you're like, somebody introduced me to somebody and then the other person introduced me, like, okay, then got you. But, and I'm not trying to sound cute with this, but what I want to draw attention to is this idea. We've heard once in a while that, hey, I did this thing and it worked so well, I stopped doing it. Right? That's so many people on the internet. It's like, if I did something and I was kicking ass with it, but then I went over here and I built this other system because I get it. I get why you're thinking about this. And there's so much nuance here. But if you have something that works, exhaust that first. Not wholly exhaust it, but at least exhaust the easy 50%. Like the low-hanging fruit, right? If you have 5 other people to talk to who could turn into 5 more 30,000 clients with a sit down, the opportunity cost of building a digital system instead is just too damn high, right? Go have those conversations, do that work, exhaust that, because that is proven. And to be clear, and this is another nuance people need to understand. When we talk about proven offers are proven in contexts. Right. So to say like, oh, I've sold this $30,000 high ticket item. I've sold it to 2 people. I validated it. Now I'm going to go sell it online. You validated it selling it in person. You have not validated it selling it online. So what you validated is a face-to-face conversation that sold high ticket when in whatever context got you those prospects. So what I would suggest doing is continuing to validate it in that same way. Are there other people you could talk to? And maybe the answer is no. I get the nuance that Jason's added here. He says, I can keep doing it, but I want to start leveraging marketing because it gets exhausting doing outreach. And that's smart thinking, but you need to find that inflection point. And it's this low-hanging fruit idea where just ask yourself think about it in terms of like units of energy. Say, okay, over the next 60 days, let's just say every day you have 10 units of energy. If my math is right, which is skeptical, over the next 60 days, I'm going to have 600 units of energy. I think if I use those 600 units of energy in service, I could use all of them pursuing, customers the way I got the first 2. I think that would make sense, but in the return on that time seems like it would be pretty high. The 60 days after that, I probably couldn't. At that point, it'd be harder. It would take more to get. And let's just make up a number. Let's say that 600 units of energy over 60 days, you're pretty confident you can get 3 clients, right? So it's 200 units of energy per client that you acquire. But because you've got some relationships, you're speaking at an event and this and that, you're like, yeah, I think I could probably pull it off. But when you look at day 61 through 120, it's probably going to take 300 or 400 units of energy. I probably could get 1 or 2 clients in the next 60 days. So I don't really have the same resources. Well, that's the inflection point then, right? That's the point to say, you know what? I'm going to take the next 60 days. I'm going to spend 80% of my time focused on just making the donuts, getting these customers that I know I can get through a method I've proven. But the remaining 20%, I'm going to start on the strategy to port this over to a digital marketing version or about a less hands-on approach and start building the initial infrastructure of that. Like that's how I would think about this, because the answer to the question, what's likely to make the boat go faster, or what, will it make the boat go faster, could be either, right? But of the two, which one, then you get to the nuance of the question. You have two things you could do. Which of them do you feel is more likely in the next 60 days, which is a good planning profile, a good planning time frame? Which strategy is likely to really get you the result that you've already validated? Well, it's the in-person one. I would lean toward that. And it's not the canonical answer though. Like you might say, hey, these two clients, they put some money in the bank for me. I don't want to do the face-to-face stuff. I want to really start thinking about going digital with this because I bought myself some runway with that 60K. Like, okay, like that's a different animal. And that then becomes then that may be your actual question. I'm going to think about that question, hand it off to Andre, and then we'll kind of wrap up with that question. Andre, how do you think about this?
So yeah, everything Sean said is correct in a context that makes sense for the fact that we're all humans and unique, and we all bias towards different ways of showing up. There's certain things some of us will never do, and other things, there's some people, they love hustling and they're in the hustle business. And if you had to take that away from them, they'd be worse off. They would feel that they're lacking energy. And there's other people, it's like, I do not want to be in the hustle business. So I'm in the leverage business. Well, how can I create leverage? And you do it, in this context, online digitally. So I think different people would answer this differently. And Sean's just given you a version that perhaps he would do, suggesting that it's one way for you to think about this. I'll just give you my lens on this, which is I'm not reflecting this over to you. It's just, if I was Jason Lee, but me, if I was doing this, I would be thinking, how can I create leverage out the gate? Or if I need a runway, I would buckle down and hustle for a few months, get whatever runway money I would need to stuff in the bank, and then I would just go dark and build out this thing, the digital component. It's create that leverage, put that manifesto online, which is really probably not that hard, and just create the little simple system that goes to a Calendly thing, and there's a webinar, not a webinar, like a video thing, just whatever that minimum viable version looks like. That would probably be for me personally, because I know that the hustle part I would want to claw my eyes out after 2 hustles. So I could never do that for longer than that. And we're all different, so that's why I think Sean's busy changing his earbuds, so I'm going to have to continue to riff over on this for a bit. But it's really important to understand what lights you up and what you get energy from, and what you're not willing to do, and what is going to be miserable. And I think it's okay to be miserable for a small period of time, but building a business that's going to make you nothing but miserable, I think is a problem. And the expression of the businesses that I've built between when I started in 2003 and now have all been around what I do not want to do. So I don't do that, which is there's a reason why there's no webinars and like video heavy stuff on anything I've done in the last 20 years, is because I don't like that. I enjoy doing this, what we're doing now. But I haven't got my camera on, and I'm not hustling in front of the zoom lens. For me, I don't enjoy that. So I think that should inform everything else downstream, and then you can just through that lens make it work. I don't know if Sean's back yet. No.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, there we go. You sound almost good.
Yeah, my AirPods apparently need to be replaced. All right, I don't think I have anything to add. I'm concerned my sound is going to be terrible too. So I think probably 3 hours and 26 minutes may be a good time to call it. It's
Yeah.
quite our 2-hour call. I mean, I don't know who we thought we were fooling, right? 2 hours. Come on. So thanks to everybody who made it, especially everybody who made it all the way. We've had more than half of you, I think. Yeah, more than half made it all the way. So if we had some badge to give you, like Iron Man badge or something, then definitely. But Jason, send an email to support. There's more to say here. I think it'll be a little more nuanced answer. And I don't know, record a Loom or something, but there's definitely more to add here. I also want to recognize like the ending questions, our brain capacity probably begins to fall off, assuming we bring any to the conversation, begins to fall off certainly at the 2.5 to 3 hour mark. So I'm sure we'll both have some thoughts about the latter questions. So Jason, yours is one of them. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for the people who raise their hands and ask questions. Thanks for playing along. And anything to add, Andre, before we wrap up?
No, this has been good fun. It's getting late here. Yeah, this has been fun. Thanks everyone for your attention.
Thanks, everybody.